Story 1. I loaned my parents $90,000 to pay off gambling debts. Then they disappeared. I later found out my wife was secretly helping them hide the money from me. I, 42M, have been with my wife for 14 years. We dated for 3 years before we got married, so if I count that, it's 17, almost 2 decades. And yet, she screwed me over in spite of all the time that we have spent together. All of this started because of my parents, who scammed me out of my life savings of almost $90,000. I have a chain of restaurants that I run along with a couple of my buddies from business school. It's a moderately successful business and we make decent money, but I had been saving up to start something of my own on the side and expand. However, last month, my parents, 64M and 63F, told me that they were in financial trouble and needed my help to bail them out because otherwise, there was a chance that they might lose their home and all their property. They told me that apparently they had borrowed money before I was born from a distant relative of my father's, his uncle probably. My father had just started working when they found out that my mother was pregnant with me, and she had to quit her job because she couldn't handle both at the same time. My dad wasn't bringing home enough money, and they were struggling with the bills. So they had borrowed money from my dad's uncle and had promised to return it in a couple of years. But instead of returning it, they continued to borrow money for the first couple of years until my dad had a substantial income of his own. By that time, I was already in middle school, and they had a considerable amount of debt. So they begged his uncle to give them time at least until I graduated from college, and then they would slowly start paying him back. But years passed, and they didn't return the money. My parents thought that they were free of the debt when this uncle passed away a couple of years ago. But then his son inherited everything, and now he's been hounding them to return what they owe, or he'll get the law involved. Everything was off the books, and so my parents hadn't been taking him seriously because he would never be able to prove that they had actually borrowed any money with the intention to return it. But a few months ago, the guy gave them a final warning and told them that they had to cough up the money, or he would file a lawsuit against them, and it would be easy for him because he is quite well connected. That's when my parents finally started taking him seriously and tried to return the money that they owed his father. My parents told me that they had given him all that they had saved, but now they needed me to help them out with the $90,000 that they didn't have on them, and then they would be debt-free. They said that they had already blown through their retirement funds and couldn't afford to lose their house and other properties as well, so they were counting on me. And I, like a total fool, decided to give them the money and help them because I didn't want them to suffer. Before that, I did tell them to give me an opportunity to talk to the guy so I could buy us more time, but they said that he didn't want to risk it because he already had a short fuse and I just had to trust them on this. It was really risky, but I trusted my parents and I gave them the money. This transaction was also off the books, which was my biggest mistake. A week after I sent them the money, I realized that I had been blocked everywhere, and my parents were nowhere to be found. Apparently, they had sold their house just a couple of days after they received the money and moved out without telling anyone. Their neighbors were the ones who told me about it, and I waited every single day for them to come back. But they didn't. After about 2 weeks, I came to terms with the fact that my parents had scammed me, and I had just lost my life savings. It was a terrible time for me, and the only consolation that I had was in the form of my wife, who kept telling me that everything would be fine and that I was still working so I could always earn the money back and start afresh. But it had taken me almost 15 years to save up $90,000, and I couldn't imagine working for another 15 just to recover what I had lost. I kept trying to work something out with my lawyer, but I didn't even know where my parents were, so it was proving to be difficult to come to a solution. I had almost given up, but then I received an email from my parents about 2 weeks ago. They told me that they were really sorry that they had to scam the money out of me and make up so many lies because it was actually a gambling debt that they were trying to pay off, and they knew that I would flip the lid if I got to know the truth about my dad's gambling. So they had to cook up some story about their struggle from before I was born, which would make me sympathize with them and make it easier for them to extract the money from me. They were kind of right. I probably wouldn't have given them the money if I had known that my dad had been gambling and that's how he lost their money. But that was still no reason for them to lie to me and scam me. They told me that they had used the money to pay off their debts, and they had sold the house so they could move away since they didn't think that I would want to be around them anymore. They claimed that they were really sorry for everything that they had put me through in their email and hoped that I could forgive them someday. The only thing that I felt after reading the email was pure rage, and I instantly forwarded it to my lawyer so we could use it against them and sue them. But when I told my wife about it, she told me that she didn't think that it was a good idea to go after them because they had already been through so much. I couldn't understand why she was siding with them because they had literally stolen money from me, and here we had proof of them admitting to it, which we could now use to get the money back. It would take us a while, sure, but I thought that it would be worth it. After all, I hadn't worked all those years for nothing, and the amount that they had scammed me out of was pretty big. So we got into an argument about it, and she told me that I was being heartless because these were my parents, and they had just made one tiny mistake. She tried to convince me that I was being really selfish, and the fact that my parents didn't even feel comfortable telling me the truth or asking me for help and felt the need to resort to scamming me just so I would bail them out was a sign that I needed to be a little more compassionate. She tried to explain to me that gambling, just like any other addiction, was out of one's control, and my father had probably just lost control like an addict does. So instead of lashing out at them and trying to put them down, I should be more thoughtful about my actions and try to be a better son to them rather than worry about my money. When I tried to remind her that they could have just come clean to me in the beginning instead of scamming me, and yet they made the wrong choice again, she told me that that was on me because I had never made them feel like I was a safe space for them to open up to, and I was so uptight and stringent that even my own parents were afraid of telling me the truth. It was a really frustrating conversation because my wife just kept turning everything around on me and absolved my parents of any blame in the situation, and maybe felt like I was the one in the wrong. She was quite manipulative and almost started making me second-guess myself because after we were done arguing, I found myself telling my lawyer to put everything on hold because I wasn't sure anymore if I wanted to go through with the proceedings or not. After my argument with my wife, I began to contemplate and question myself about my relationship with my parents because she had made me feel as though I was the bad guy here, even though I was the one who got scammed. The gaslighting was so expertly done that I had almost started to consider that maybe I was too hard on people. It didn't really help that I also had a reputation for being difficult to deal with and kind of being the bad cop at work. So all of that combined had me thinking that maybe I could have been better to my parents, and then they would have been honest with me. I almost started to believe that I shouldn't go after them and that the money shouldn't matter to me as much as it does because my wife had told me that it should be more important to me that my parents were safe and sound, and my obsession with savings just made her feel like I was being a little too materialistic and was actively choosing money over my own parents. We didn't speak to each other for the next couple of days, but I kept thinking about whatever she had said to me in the argument. I had been sleeping on the couch while we were fighting, and I kept replaying that argument and going through my parents' email again and trying to clear my head because I was just so confused about what to do next. My lawyer kept telling me that suing them would be the right thing to do and that we had to strike while the iron was hot, but I kept putting it off because I didn't want to make the wrong move and end up losing my wife because I had already lost my parents, even though they were alive. So that's how I wasted a couple of days. I was almost about to apologize to my wife when I accidentally read a text on her phone from my mother, and it changed everything for me. I had taken a day off from work and was wandering around the house because I was really depressed when I noticed that my wife had left her phone at home before she left for work. Curiosity got the better of me when I saw her screen lighting up with a text notification, and in spite of myself, I decided to go snooping through her phone because I wanted to know if she had been talking about me to her friends while we were fighting. It was childish and petty, but I'm so glad that I did it because I found out that my wife of almost 2 decades had been in cahoots with my parents. I knew my wife's phone's password, so it wasn't too hard to get into it, and then I started reading her texts. When she received one from my mother, I just knew that I had to read it, so I started reading those texts between my mother and my wife. I thought that it was really strange that they were even talking because my wife had no reason to be talking to my mother, especially after the scam that they had pulled. My mother had sent her a text asking if my wife had managed to convince me not to go through with the lawsuit yet, followed by another text which said that if I sued my parents, then the deal was off. That seemed like a fishy thing to say. I scrolled up and started reading more of the conversation to get some context. In doing so, I realized that this had been in the works for quite a while, and my wife had been speaking to my parents ever since they sent the email. My parents had reached out to her the day to ask about me out of concern, but she had turned the tables on them and told them that she wasn't saying a word. She threatened them and said that she was not above taking this text to the cops and having them trace down where they work so she could find them and my lawyer and I could force them to return the money. It was all great until that point because she was standing up for me. But then my parents offered her half of the money that they had received from the sale of their house and other properties to keep her mouth shut, and to convince me not to file a lawsuit against them. So it wasn't like they didn't have money to pay off their gambling debts. They just didn't want to use their own money, which is why they had decided to scam me, which was clearly a very well thought out move. And my wife agreed to the deal and said that she was going to try and convince me to keep my lawyer out of this as long as she got the money. From what I gathered from the texts, she had already received half of the amount for even trying and was supposed to receive the other half in a couple of months as long as I didn't sue them. I could feel my heart breaking while I was going through that conversation, but I decided to save the sadness for later because at that moment, it was more important for me to record this conversation. So I took a bunch of screenshots and emailed them to myself, and I also recorded the screen while scrolling through that conversation and sent that video to myself just to be on the safe side. I knew that my wife would soon be back home to take her phone, so I hurriedly packed a few things and moved out. I kept driving until I reached a hotel a little out of town, and I had kept my phone switched off so she wouldn't be able to contact me during that time. I knew that she would know that I knew the truth as soon as she went through her messages because I hadn't bothered to delete the screenshots that I had sent from her phone to mine. I wanted her to know that I knew the truth now. Once I was in the hotel, I turned my phone back on and ignored every single text that I had received from my wife and went on to call my lawyer so he could prepare the petition, and I sent him all the evidence necessary along with my parents. I decided to sue my wife as well and get the money back from her because she had taken money from my parents, but that was rightfully mine. I also filed for divorce because there was no way that I could go back from this. She kept texting me about how sorry she was and that she just needed one chance to explain to me that she had done all of this for us and was going to tell me about it eventually when she had all the money. She kept trying to tell me that I was misreading the situation and that she was on my side here and that she was going to use the money for our future. But none of it mattered to me because I couldn't believe that she would manipulate, gaslight, and lie to me for money. We had a nice life, and even though my parents had scammed me out of a huge amount of money, we could still afford things that we wanted, so it didn't make any sense for her to go against me just for money. She was just being plain greedy, and that wasn't even the worst part. It was the fact that she had been manipulating me into forgiving my parents that stung me the most. If she really had an intention of using that money for our future, then she could have just been honest with me instead of playing mind games. Even if I forgave her, I don't think I would ever be able to trust her again, so getting a divorce was the only viable option. So my lawyer and I went ahead with the petitions, and my parents and my wife were served a couple of days ago. It was a great hassle for my lawyer to locate my parents, and we had to hire a professional, but he did manage to find where they were hiding out, and they got served in person just how I wanted it to be. I didn't hear back from my parents, but my wife has been losing her mind, and since I haven't blocked her yet, it's getting a little difficult to deal with. She sent me a bunch of messages the day that she got served with both the divorce and the lawsuit, and I could tell that she was really desperate now. She has been begging me to reconsider the divorce and keeps saying that she made a mistake and that she wants to make it up to me, but I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like a total jerk because I know that I'm breaking her heart, but I don't have any other option right now, and the way that she keeps texting me and begging me to come back is making me feel really bad about everything. After all, I have spent the last 17 years of my life with this woman, and she kept telling me that she was doing this for us. I'm just really confused. I'm filing for divorce from my wife of 17 years because she was manipulating me into forgiving my parents. Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since I filed the petitions, and I have blocked my wife because I don't think I have anything left to say to her anymore. She kept trying to talk to me and make me come back for about a week before I finally blocked her, and part of the reason was that so many people commented here and told me that I needed to make a run for it because my wife was a huge red flag. I feel like the only reason I had even been questioning myself was because I loved her, and I desperately wanted to hold on to that belief that she would never do something like this to me. But I couldn't ignore the facts anymore. She had betrayed me, and she had manipulated me. She probably wouldn't even have ever told me the truth herself, and I had to find out by chance. After a betrayal of this degree, I don't think I could ever bring myself to trust her again. So no matter how much I loved her and I wanted to be with her, I had to let her go for the sake of my own sanity. Blocking her was actually quite a relief for me, and I definitely have a much clearer head now. The legal proceedings against my parents and my wife have already started, and things are pretty much going in my favor right now. I know for a fact now that I will be getting my money back, so I'm not too worried about the future. My parents are going to pay for all the lies that they made up. My lawyer and I are going to make sure of that. They already looked pretty unhappy on the day that we met for her first settlement negotiation, but my goal is to make sure that they look and feel just as unhappy as I had felt when they scammed me. My wife tried to talk to me that day as well, and it was difficult for me, but I dodged her somehow and made my way back to the hotel without having to interact with her. And now I just have to keep doing that until this is all over. It's probably going to be really difficult, but I know that I do not want to speak to my wife under any circumstances. It's mostly because I'm afraid that speaking to her might make me weak again, and I can't afford to let that happen. I don't want to go back to her because I know that could be the worst move that I make, and I know very well that she can totally manipulate me into coming back. She almost did it once, and when it comes to her, I have practically no self-control, so it's best for me not to take that risk at all. It's already hard enough for me to meet her and fight her legally. I can't do more. So that's the plan right now. Just avoid her as much as I can. Update 2. So my wife decided to contact me today in person and showed up at the hotel that I have been living in. When I received the call from the hotel front desk and got to know that my wife was here to see me, I was really confused because I hadn't told anybody where I was apart from my lawyer and a couple of close friends who I trusted, and I knew that they wouldn't tell her. When I spoke to her, I found out that for the past couple of days, she had been visiting every hotel in and around town looking for me, and now that she had finally found me, she wasn't going to leave without having a conversation with me. I didn't know what else to do, so I invited her up to my room because I didn't want to fight with her in the lobby. Once we were in my room, I waited for her to start talking because I had nothing to say to her. After some awkward silence, she told me that she was here to ask me to stop the divorce proceedings, and I just couldn't believe that she was bringing this up again. I really knew it, and I told her that it was bad enough that she was here. She shouldn't make things worse for herself by backing me into a corner. I told her very clearly that I was not going to entertain any discussion about this, but she told me that she would testify against my parents and make everything much easier for me if I just decided to stay with her. It was ridiculous and exasperating because I had to explain to her that that's not how things work. She couldn't just turn on my parents and expect me to take her back. She had really screwed our relationship up, and there was just no fixing it anymore, mostly because I didn't want to fix it. I wanted to leave, and I had made it pretty clear to her, but she just couldn't accept it. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I sacrificed everything to maintain a long-distance relationship with my girlfriend in college. Then I found out she dropped out, cheated on me in Mexico, and started an OnlyFans. Hillary and I had been together for nearly 4 years. She moved to the city during our junior year of high school, and we quickly became fast friends. I had never connected with someone as deeply as I did with her. We said our I love yous on the second day we spent together. The first 2 years were the 2 most incredible years of my life. We went on to university together. We literally spent almost every single day together. Hillary was everything I could have ever asked for, and I thought she was the one. I felt lucky to have someone like her. The first 2 years, she would always bring up marriage and kids and things like that. I was all in. We knew we wanted to go to the same college. She was going to take a teaching degree, and I was going to tackle engineering. But the time came for me to take my diploma exam, and I didn't get the grade I needed to get into engineering. Then things sort of just changed for me. It's like my whole future collapsed. I watched as my dreams of becoming an engineer shattered before my eyes. The disappointment and frustration weighed heavily on me, casting a dark shadow over everything. As my friends celebrated their successes and made plans for the future, I felt like I was standing still, frozen in time. Hillary noticed the change in me, the way I retreated into myself and became distant. At first, she tried to cheer me up, reminding me that there were other paths to take, other dreams to pursue. But I couldn't shake off the sense of failure that clung to me like a heavy cloak. I felt like a failure. From there, a couple of buddies of mine urged me to go into geological sciences. It was something that I had an interest in, but never really thought of how I could make a career out of it, as it was always just a hobby. But I decided to give it a shot. The only catch was that the college where the program was located was in a different city altogether, about a 12-hour drive from the college that Hillary had been accepted to for her teaching degree. I applied to the program without telling her. Yeah, I know, bad boyfriend, but I knew that she'd try to talk me out of it, and I just already felt low for not getting into the engineering program that I had planned on. I ended up getting accepted into the program, But the excitement of getting accepted quickly turned to dread, because I still hadn't told her what my new plan was. How could I be so selfish to choose my own path over Hillary's and potentially risk our relationship in the process? I ended up sitting her down and mustering up the courage to break the news to her. She didn't say much, just nodded as if processing the information. Then she said that she'd already been accepted to the college we had originally planned to go to together, and she wasn't going to walk away from that. I encouraged her not to. She was mad, upset, disappointed, all of it. But she said that she didn't want to hold me back. I said that we would talk, text, and video chat every day if we needed. I said I'd come back for all of the big holidays and for the fall and spring breaks. But when I was in school, the long distance combined with school and work started to put a serious strain on me, and I knew it had put a strain on our relationship. Soon enough, in hindsight, it may have been foolish, but I made the decision to prioritize her above all else. She became the most important thing in my life. I felt like an ass for leaving her and the biggest loser for moving away from all of my friends and family. I ended up doing really bad that year because I'd skip class just to video chat with her. I'd stay up late talking to her and lose focus, skip out on assignments, and I ended up on academic probation. I considered dropping out, but my family insisted I stick it out. I ended up being really depressed. She seemed to be flourishing and doing really well. She said she missed me, but she said that she wasn't going anywhere and that it was only temporary. She said we were doing this for our future, so that's what kept me going. She basically gave me some tough love, and I sort of snapped out of it. There were weekends that she had said she planned to come out to see me, but then she'd back out last minute. She said an assignment came up, or she wanted to spend the weekend studying, and so I didn't want to take her away from that. I just looked at this more so as business. I had a job to do and she had a job to do. We were building our future together. I came back for Christmas and hardly saw her. I chalked it up to the fact that Christmas is a busy time of year, and we both had family to see and visit, and everyone sort of wanted a piece of me while I was finally in town, except for my own girlfriend. Then spring break came around. She kept telling me how excited she was to see me and all of the things she had planned. But then I came back, and she said that she was super sick. I went to drop off some homemade soup and sandwiches one night, but it was a quick hi and bye. She didn't even kiss me on the lips because she said she didn't want to get me sick. I was bummed. When I went back to school, I worked my ass off trying to better myself so that I was going into my second year on the right foot. I ended up finding my groove, and finally it was summer break, and I came back home. Although I was unhappy and struggling with depression, I never let it show. I took responsibility for my emotions and tried my best to make her happy. Our once thriving relationship had changed, but I attributed it to a settling into a routine and the end of the honeymoon phase. Suddenly, she began expressing her strong opposition to having children, even though I had never brought up the topic and still didn't want kids. This was also when she casually mentioned that she could live without getting married, a warning sign that I overlooked. But despite these hints, I chose to ignore them. Suddenly, I thought, okay, maybe I don't want to get married, and maybe I didn't want to be a dad. I was willing to put all of that aside for her. During this time, I came close to landing a dream job quite a few times, but always came up just short. And each time, I could sense her respect for me dwindling. It was an internship that would have gotten my foot in the door. I told myself to stop being irrational and paranoid, and again ignored something that should have been a red flag. That brings us to our last year together. When we first started dating, we had sex pretty much all the time, like we'd skip class to go and do the deed. We both have high drives, and it was amazing. But this past year, we had sex a grand total of 3 times. I mean, granted, I wasn't around, but still. While I was away, she talked about what she'd do to me when I got back as if she was going to jump my bones the first chance she got. But it wasn't like that at all. And each time, it was her doing me a favor after I had basically begged her. Despite constantly asking, she always responded with, "I don't feel attractive." However, I honored her wishes and remained by her side because my love for her was too strong. During this time, my relationships with all my friends deteriorated a bit, mostly because I was struggling with being away, trying to balance school and maintain my relationship with her, and I was battling depression real bad. And during this time, I will say, she was working hard and really taking care of herself. She lost some weight, and she was looking particularly delicious. She started regularly going to the gym and quickly lost a significant amount of weight. Physically, she was almost unrecognizable, and her personality seemed to change as well. She became emotionally distant from me, no longer displaying the neediness and clinginess that characterized our relationship before. Even when she showed me affection, it felt forced and insincere. I tried talking to her about it multiple times, but she always reassured me that everything was fine. I convinced myself that I was overthinking things and that my insecurities were getting the best of me, thanks to reading too many similar stories on Reddit. Being around her became unbearable, yet I couldn't bring myself to end things in case it was all in my head. I desperately wanted concrete proof of what I was feeling. Well, one day I had enough, and I told her that it doesn't even feel like we're in a relationship anymore. We got in this huge fight. I felt like I was talking to a stranger, someone I once knew so intimately but now couldn't recognize. Hillary said that it was all in my head and that everything was fine. She said she was just working hard towards our future and that I needed to trust her. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. It was as if a dark cloud had settled over our relationship, casting a shadow on everything we once had. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was slipping away from me. She said I just needed to focus on me and stay on track. She said everything was fine. Then she suggested that we go to Mexico for spring break. She said it would be a perfect place to let loose and just relax and spend some intimate time together. I quickly jumped at the idea, and we both spent the night excited, invigorated, looking at all-inclusive packages. We eventually found one that worked for both of us, and we were going to meet each other there. Well, a few days before we were supposed to leave, she drops this bomb, saying that she can't go anymore. Hillary told me she had to work on an important project and couldn't take the time off to go on the trip. I was disappointed. I sort of flipped out, but then she got mad at me, saying that she was doing this for us and that I needed to be more understanding. I said she was leaving me with this big bill now that should have been split between the two of us, and not only that, but this trip was supposed to save our relationship, that it didn't even feel like she was putting first anymore. Then she said that I was being unreasonable and selfish and that I didn't understand how hard she was working and that everything she was doing was for me and the relationship. I then backed off. I tried to understand the importance of her work and didn't want to pressure her into coming with me, but I couldn't help but feel like I had been sacrificing my own happiness and well-being for the sake of our relationship, only to be met with accusations of not being supportive enough. Felt like a slap in the face. She said that I should still go on the trip and that she would call me every night and we could video chat. She said that the trip would be good for me to cut back and relax and get my mind off of school. I ultimately went to Mexico by myself. On the nights that we were supposed to video chat, she'd say she had to turn in early, so we only talked for about 20 minutes at a time. Well, one night she said good night and we said our goodbyes. And then I'm scrolling through Instagram and I watch a mutual friend of ours story, and she's at a bar taking shots and Hillary is with her. I'm like, maybe this is an old video and our friend is just posting this now. Then I go on to Messenger, and it says that Hillary was active 30 minutes ago. Well, she said she was going to bed 2 hours ago, so what is she doing still up? Then I go on to Snapchat, but Hillary has turned off her live location. Usually she shares her location, but I've never really had to use it. Okay, then I go back to Instagram and I message our friend and I ask what bar that is. She responds and says it's a certain bar and she sends a photo of a drink in her hand, so I know it's live, I know she's there right now, and I know Hillary is there. I text Hillary and I say, I thought you were sleeping. Then I try to go back and see the story again, but our friend has deleted it. Well, now I'm fuming. Hillary doesn't respond. I try to go to sleep, but I can't. It's still early, and there's a bar down by the beach that's still open, so I get dressed and go down for some drinks. I end up meeting some people there, and there's an attractive woman there who's pretty flirty with me, Heidi. We end up drinking together, and she asks me to come back to her room. She rubs my leg. I put my hand down to sort of stop her from going any further, and I say that I'm super flattered but that I'm seeing somebody. She apologizes. She says she didn't know and she totally respects that. We end up adding each other on Instagram, it being totally harmless, and I add a few more of the group of people there that she's with as well. We all end up hanging out a bit, and I actually really enjoyed myself. I spent the rest of the vacation with that group anyways. She doesn't respond to my text, and the next morning I send another. And then about 2 hours later, she responds and she says, "Oh, sorry, she went out with Trish, who is our mutual friend." And she says Trish needed to get out and asked me last minute. She said Trish needed a friend. I was like, "Why did you lie?" She said she didn't lie. She just didn't feel the need to text me because she thought I'd be sleeping. And then I say, "Why did she think I was sleeping? Because I'm here alone and you think I'm a loser?" And she said, "Whoa, where did that come from?" And I say, "I didn't go to bed either. I went to a bar myself that night and met some cool people." Then I guess there is a photo that I was tagged in, and Heidi's arm was around me in the photo, but there was a group of us in it. So then she forwards me that photo an hour later and she says, "Cool people, huh?" And I read it and don't respond. That night, I have a buddy of mine text me and tell me that she was at the bar with Trish and Hill and that Hill was seeing with another guy. And I say, "What? What guy?" And then he sends me a text of Hill sitting on some random's lap. My buddy then sends another, and it's of this guy kissing her neck. Then he sends another, and they're dancing but basically on top of each other. Well, then I'm in Mexico all by myself and find out my girlfriend is cheating on me. My buddy texts me and says that he's sorry. And then I'm like, "Don't be sorry." And I send a screenshot of the woman who tried to get with me the night before. Then he says, "You know what I would do." And I did. I did know what my friend would do. So I went into Instagram and messaged Heidi and asked her out for dinner. We end up going for this lovely dinner and sitting at this poolside bar. We get to know each other, and she asks me what happened to what I said earlier. And I said, "You're seeing somebody?" And she said, "Yeah, forget I ever said that." I then go on to tell her basically my life story, and I show her those photos of Hill with some random guy. Heidi then says that her offer still stands. Did I take her up on that offer? Hell yeah, I did. She even grabbed my phone and took a selfie of her mouth on a certain part of my anatomy, and I'll let you guess which one. Let's just say I came to Mexico to feel relaxed and to get my mind off of school, and my mind was definitely not on school. Later that night, we put those pictures of Hill and her new guy up on my social stories and said, "Miss Hillary is a cheater who will be teaching the next generations. Do you want her teaching your future kids?" Then she texts me and says, "How could you do this? What are you thinking? You're out of your mind." All that jazz. She said, "How could you treat your girlfriend like this?" I said, "Girlfriend? I'm single. I can do whatever I want in paradise." Then I sent her the photo of Heidi making me feel good and tell her I'm doing this for my future. Update 1. Quick update. I come back from Mexico and find out that Hill has an OnlyFans account. Another buddy of mine screenshotted her account and sent it to me, and it's definitely her. Guess she's been real busy since I've been away for school. I sent the screenshots to her family and friends, and by this point I don't even care. Then it comes out that Hill wasn't even going to school. She dropped out in the first semester because she had failed some classes, but had managed to pretend like she was going. She was actually just creating a following on OnlyFans. She took on this persona of Mill. Update 2. Back again. Hillary's actions had broader implications for her family's reputation and social standing within their community. See, her father was actually a man of pretty big importance and ended up losing some pretty big clients. Her father's reputation took a hit that even he couldn't recover from. They went through so much strain that her parents ended up getting divorced, and her dad moved out of town. I'm not sure where he ended up. I never asked. But I talk to Hill's sister still from time to time. I guess their mom isn't talking to Hill. She's not allowed home, and she's been working at some Dollar Tree. But her OnlyFans isn't active anymore. Hill and her family are totally disgraced. They've lost everything. I feel bad for her sister. Meanwhile, I'm finishing up school, and I feel like I'm in a really good place. I finally got my head out of my ass and met some new people here. It's starting to feel like home, and I even talked to Heidi a bit here and there, and she's planning on coming out to see me next month. We're not putting any expectations in it. We're friends, she's cool, and we're just having fun for the first time in, well, ever. I don't regret moving here and doing something for myself. I guess not getting into engineering turned out to be one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. Life's weird. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My sister's boyfriend mocked my wife over her best friend's death. When my wife finally snapped and told him everyone in the family hates him, my sister demanded a public apology. Backstory. I'm 36F and married to the love of my life. K, 36F. We met when we were 17. She was out and proud, whilst I was still in the closet, so we didn't start dating until I came out at 21. We got married in 2019 and have an adopted 4-year-old son, Jack. This comes in relevant in a minute. My sister, Sarah, 27F, has a long-term boyfriend, Steve, 28M, who the family cannot stand. They've been together for 8 years, and the whole family has hated him from the first time we met him. He is rude, obnoxious, arrogant, and all in all a crappy human being. He's also someone that likes to claim that he is just honest. But if someone is honest back to him, he flips out and sulks like a toddler. In fact, my toddler is better behaved than him. He isn't abusive to Sarah and doesn't direct these comments towards her. It's just the rest of us. He's actually a good partner to her and treats her well, which is his one redeeming quality. My dad and Kay hate him the most and will do anything to avoid him at family gatherings. Kay usually just ignores him and brushes off anything he says to her as she doesn't like conflict. However, there have been a few occasions that she has said something back, but it's usually said in a joking manner, which amuses my dad to no end. My mom is a peacekeeper and will do anything to avoid drama, so she just changes the topic whenever he starts. But she and my grandparents all hate him just as much as the rest of us. Sarah is the only one that obviously doesn't hate him. Our son's birth mother, Tess, was Kay's best friend, who sadly died in 2021. This was a real shock as she had an underlying heart condition that she didn't know about and simply went to sleep one night and never woke up. Jack had been left alone in his cot all day screaming for his mom before Kay got worried that Tess wasn't answering her texts and went to their house to see if she was okay. She found Jack in his cot and Tess in her bed. We adopted Jack as no one in Tess's family was in a position to take him in. We raise him as our own, but he knows who Tess is. Obviously, this is a very sensitive time for Kay, as it was so traumatic for her and Jack. The incident. Now on to what happened last weekend. It was the anniversary of Tess's death on Saturday. So Kay, Jack, and I went to visit her grave. Kay is always quiet after going to see her, and this time of year is especially hard for her. On Sunday, we had a family gathering at my parents' house. These happen every couple of months as just a catch-up for everyone. At first, nothing was out of the ordinary. Kay and my dad were off to the side talking as usual. Only I could see that Kay was obviously struggling. My dad and her went for a walk so she could clear her head. This is something they have done before, so nothing too unusual. However, Steve had an issue with this and asked why they had left and why he wasn't invited to walk with them. I explained that it was about Tess and Kay just needed a minute. This wasn't good enough for Steve though, and he said she should have gotten over it by now. At this, my granddad, who is naturally a very quiet guy, said that his best friend had died over 20 years ago and he still had days where he missed him so much it hurt. You don't just get over something like that. Steve shut up at that. Kay and my dad got back, and she was in a much better mood. We all sat down at the table for our late lunch and started chatting. Everything was fine at first until Steve started trying to butt into Kay's conversation with my granddad. When it was obvious that they weren't going to include him, he very loudly stated, "This is because she's getting all the attention from everyone because her friend died 3 years ago. Get over it. We're all sick of hearing about it." The whole table went silent, and I took one look at Kay and knew she was about to go off on Steve. Only it didn't happen the way I thought. Rather than exploding at him, she looked at him very calmly and said that her and Granddad weren't talking about Tess. They were making plans to take him to the Christmas markets. But if you want to be a a-hole, then no problem. She then went on to say to him that everyone in the family hates him because he's a toxic narcissist, that whenever he can't come to a family gathering, the whole family is much happier, that there is a reason he has no friends, and that his own family can't stand to be around him. That reason is that he's rotten from the inside out and that Tess may have only been on this planet for 32 years, but she made a bigger impact on people than he would if he lived until he was 150. That her funeral was rammed with people because she was so loved, whereas he'd be lucky if anyone other than Sarah was at his. After that, she got up and went to the back garden and I followed her. A few minutes later, my dad came out and said that he'd told Sarah and Steve to leave. We went back inside, and Kay apologized to everyone and said she should have just kept her mouth shut. Everyone other than my mom told her what she had done was right and it was about time someone told him. My dad then found it hilarious that a lesbian had been the one to tell him straight, which lightened the mood a lot. We spent the rest of the afternoon there before going to pick Jack up from Kay's mom's house, as she had had him overnight on Saturday for us. The aftermath. The reason I'm making this post is that yesterday I got a call from Sarah saying that her and Steve wanted an apology from Kay or they weren't going to Christmas. When I reminded her that we wouldn't be at Christmas either as it's our year to spend it with Kay's mom, so it made no difference to us, she got really upset saying that she wanted an apology because Kay was way out of line. I said she wasn't and that I wouldn't even contemplate asking her to apologize because I agreed with everything she said and so did everyone else there. She ended the call and I just went back to work. Then today my dad called me and asked if Kay's mom would mind a few more for Christmas as he was refusing to spend it with Steve. So he and my granddad needed somewhere else to go. Apparently after Sarah had called me, she had called mom and started ranting, and my mom had told my dad to get Kay to apologize, which he said no to, and they had an argument. My dad has now decided that he's done with Steve, even if that affects his relationship with Sarah. He's not having it anymore. My mom wants Sarah there, and she won't go without Steve, so my dad is going somewhere else, and my granddad agreed with him. I texted Kay's mom and she said they were welcome, so now my mom is furious and saying that my dad and Kay are ripping the family apart. So basically, this has turned into a shit show. Kay has said she will apologize if I want her to, just to keep the peace, but I've told her no way. Everything she said was true. I just don't know where to go from here, and the people in my life all hate Steve that much that Kay could have physically attacked him and they would all still think she is in the right. So that's why I'm asking internet strangers who might have had to deal with difficult family members, what can we do to get into a place where we can be around each other amicably? I'm struggling to see a way right now. Wow, didn't realize how long this got until I went to post it. Sorry about that. OP replies to commenters. Comment 1. For things to be peaceful, both parties need to want it. Kay did nothing wrong. I wouldn't ever spend another moment with Steve. I would let Sarah know I love her and we see her anytime, anywhere, but I'll never see Steve again. If you have one guest that basically wants to shit on the holiday table, there is no path forward with them. OP. If it was just Sarah upset, then I wouldn't care, but it's my mom. She tries so hard to keep the whole family together, and she is devastated by what's going on. If it wasn't for her, then Sarah could go take a running jump for all I care right now. Comment 2. This is the issue, that Steve and Sarah don't see anything wrong in what he's done. It was just him being honest. I would be happier for her to apologize if Steve and Sarah had admitted that what he said was in the wrong as well. Without that, I'm being stubborn about it. My dad told Kay he will fall out with her if she apologizes as she did nothing wrong. There was no screaming or shouting. She said it very calmly. I feel like I'm stuck between making my mom happy and doing what I believe to be right. Comment 3. My sister doesn't see anything wrong in what he says as he's just being honest, but loses it when someone is honest back. I don't understand her anymore. Mom, take the high road and rise above it, have been two of my mom's favorite things to say to us over the years. I just feel like enough is enough. He crossed a line this time that he can't come back from. I especially don't want my son around him when he's saying things like that about Tess. Comment 4. If I hear my mom say, take the high road one more time, I'm going to scream. I'm sick of the high road. I've been on it for 8 years. I'm happy on the low road now. Later that day. OP. Well, I've just found out that my granny and pa, my mom's parents, are going to my uncle's for Christmas and Steve is not invited. So it looks like it's going to be just Mom, Sarah, and Steve for Christmas this year. How OP feels about that. Vindicated, as my mom is like her parents. They're all peacekeepers, and if ever they have had enough, then it just shows that she's not just stepped over the line, he's ran right past it. About Mom. Kay's mom has already told her that if she changes her mind, then she is welcome at her house even if it's Christmas morning. She is more than welcome. Obviously, Steve and Sarah aren't invited at all, but it's good that my mom has the option at least. Later reflection. I have realized that he has been trying to target Kay and my dad's relationship as they're very close. They have traveled all over the country visiting classic car shows together, which Steve has tried to get in on, but he doesn't know anything about cars, so there's no point in him going even if they did like him. I actually think he's been trying to push Kay and I out of the family so that he gets my dad to himself, even though my dad can't stand him. Update: November 20th, 2024. Hi, I know how much this community loves an update, so I thought I would give you one as things seem to be sorting themselves out, kind of. After I wrote my last post, a few things happened in the next couple of hours. First thing was that I spoke to my grandparents on my mom's side. They were there when this all happened, but they're like my mom and just constantly try to keep the peace. That's where she gets it from. They were supposed to be spending Christmas with my mom this year, but they changed their minds and decided to spend it with my uncle instead. They have made the decision to not be around Steve either as he causes too much drama. They asked if they could come and see us and Jack on the 23rd before they head off to my uncle's, which I happily agreed to. This really surprised me and it outright shocked my mom as, like I said, they are the biggest, take the high road type people I've ever met, but even they'd had enough. The next thing that happened was my dad called to let me know that Steve and Sarah had now decided that they want Kay to make a public apology in front of the whole family and admit she was lying and that the family loved Steve. He was laughing as he told me this and called them delusional. So any small chance of a superficial apology went out the window. The third thing that happened was Jack getting home from after-school club with a recorder that I am sorely tempted to shove up the teacher's backside. So all in all, it wasn't a great day. Through talking to people on here, I also realized that Steve has been trying to push Kay and I out of the family, organizing trips that he knows we would be able to go on. We wouldn't have gone on them anyway, as a weekend away with him sounds worse than a paper cut to the eyeball, and him constantly trying to get my dad away from Kay whenever we are all together. I think this is because he is jealous of Kay and Dad's relationship as they're very close and go on trips to classic car shows several times a year together, usually with my granddad as well. Anyway, things went quiet for a few days until the weekend. Our town has a big Christmas fair that runs from November through December, and we always go to it with Mom, Dad, Granddad, Kay's mom. We decided to cheer my mom up a bit to go on Sunday and then out for dinner after. My mom was told that if Sarah or Steve showed up then we would all leave, and she promised they wouldn't be there. Things were a bit awkward at first but settled after a while. At one point, Jack got my mom and Dad to take him on the giant snow slide, and as my mom walked back over to us, she had tears in her eyes. I pulled her to one side to see what was going on, and she said that whilst waiting in line, Jack had said he was happy Uncle Steve wasn't here. When my mom asked why, he said that Uncle Steve was a bad man. My mom tried to say that he wasn't, but in typical stubborn 4-year-old fashion, he had argued and said he learned in school that people who say mean things all the time are bad people, and Uncle Steve said mean things all the time, so he was a bad man and that he didn't like him. There had been a case of bullying in his class a few weeks ago, and the teacher had done a lesson on how wrong bullying is, so I think that's where this came from. This finally broke through to my mom. If even a 4-year-old can see what a horrible piece of shit the man is, then she had to as well. She said that she felt stuck because she hated Steve and agreed with everything that Kay has said, but she loves Sarah and doesn't want to isolate her. I told her I would always be there for her, but I wasn't putting myself, Jack, or Kay through being around Steve again, and she needed to think about what she wants, not what I want or Dad or Kay or Jack or her parents or Sarah or Steve, but what she wants. She went quiet and then said that Kay's mom had told her she was welcome at hers for Christmas if she wanted to, and that she could decide it on Christmas Day if she wanted. Kay's mom would save her a plate. We went back to the group, and a little while later I saw Mom and Kay's mom having a deep discussion whilst walking behind us. Neither will say what they talked about, but Mom seemed a bit happier after their talk. They have also been talking since, as yesterday my mom told me that she will be coming to Kay's mom's for Christmas, and they've been talking about going shopping together next week. When Mom told Sarah after calling me, Sarah predictably lost her mind and said that Mom was choosing us over her. My mom told her she was choosing to have a good Christmas rather than being belittled and made miserable all for the sake of Steve and his so-called honesty. Sarah then called me and asked if I was happy that I'd won. She then did the unforgivable and used a few homophobic slurs towards me and Kay and called Jack a bastard. I ended the call, blocked her everywhere, and then let my family know what had happened and that I never wanted to speak to her again. They're all as appalled as I am. My granny, Mom's mom, called Sarah and apparently told her she was dead to her, as she won't have a beach in the family. Sarah has been trying to reach out to apologize because she knows she has stepped over the unforgivable line, but I've just kept blocking the fake accounts that she's making. Steve tried reaching out to my dad after this, and when he eventually answered, Steve tried to say that Sarah was just angry and didn't mean it. According to Mom, Dad ended up giving him a verbal lashing and told him that he was the worst thing that had ever happened to Sarah and our family. My dad has told Sarah he is disgusted with her but will be there for her if she leaves Steve. Until then, good luck. Mom has gone low contact as well but wants to keep the door open so that Sarah isn't completely isolated. I had a few people saying that Steve may be abusive towards Sarah, but I really don't think he is. He usually acts like an a-hole when the attention isn't on him. He knows that when he says dickish things, then all the attention is on him and he revels in it. After Sarah's outburst, I just think that they're both toxic and feed off each other's toxicity. She lets him get away with the things he says because she gets pleasure out of watching us all bite our tongues and keep quiet. So Mom's angry, Dad's angry, our 3 grandparents are angry, extended family are angry, and Kay is being my rock, but I can tell she's really angry about what she said towards Jack. I'm just sad and done with it all. At least now I know what she really thinks about Jack, Kay, and myself, so there's that. Not the perfect update, but we move on. It will be nice this Christmas to have both sides of the family together for the first time and not have to worry about Steve being a a-hole, but I'm sad that is how my relationship with my sister has ended. I'm trying to get into the Christmas spirit, but it's a tough one right now. The only things that are making me smile are Kay and Jack being goofy idiots to cheer me up. However, the recorder can go to hell. I curse whoever invented the thing, like seriously. Thanks for all the support in my original post and opening my eyes to a few things. Maybe internet strangers are the way to go for advice after all. Hope you all have a good Christmas/holidays. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Parents kicked me out for a silly mistake. Years later, they finally reached out to forgive me, but they just want me to fund my sister's fake luxury lifestyle. Hi. So, I, 25F, recently did something to completely destroy my sister's future career as an Instagram influencer, and my family is mad right now. They're actually even threatening to sue me, so I really need all the help I can get. Now for context, I haven't exactly been in touch with my family in the past. I got kicked out of the house when I was 17 for a stupid mistake that I had made. But I guess I was on thin ice with them anyway because, I hate to admit it, but I had sort of become a teen delinquent of sorts. I don't really like talking about this phase of my life, but it's necessary for me to bring it up here. So here it is. I kind of fell in with the wrong kind of crowd when I was around 15, and I started doing everything that was illegal. You name it, smoking, underage drinking, and even pot. I would sneak out of my house almost every other day and sneak back in the morning. My grades started dropping drastically because I hardly got any sleep, and my parents found out about everything eventually. They tried to punish me. They grounded me for weeks, but I would still make my way outside to hang out with my so-called friends, and grounding me only made everything more thrilling because I knew that I was not supposed to be doing any of this. And yet I was. My sister, Kelly, 21F, was practically an angel in comparison because even though she wasn't doing anything special, at least she was following the rules and not behaving like me. She was still a brat, but in other ways and much less of a miscreant. Anyway, this behavior of mine continued for almost 2 years, and my parents tried everything to stop me. But I thought that I was being cool, so I never listened to them. I was flunking out of school, and my family was really disappointed in me. But my parents still did not send me away because they did not want anyone to find out that I had turned into a juvenile delinquent. And then, when I had just turned 17, my friends and I were out getting drunk one night, and on a dare, I decided that it would be a great idea to vandalize a cop car parked nearby. Of course, it wasn't. We got caught, and that's how I ended up in juvie for 6 months. That was a big mistake, and it really sobered me up and made me realize how I was completely screwing up my own life just for the validation from my so-called friends who had bailed on me the second things got serious. Anyway, that was a wake-up call for me. But unfortunately, by then my parents had decided that they didn't want anything to do with me anymore. I can't exactly blame them, but I also think it was not cool of them to kick me out of the house right after I came back from juvie. I had already had enough time there. I didn't need this. But I couldn't stop them either. And so, just like that, I was out. After that, I had nowhere to go because most of my relatives did not want anything to do with me. My friends had actually turned out to be a pretty bad influence on me, so I was definitely not going to them. That left my grandparents. But the problem was that my maternal grandparents lived out of state, and my dad's parents lived in the suburbs, which was a huge distance away from my school and everything that I knew. However, I didn't have any options, and I didn't want to go to the cops to report the fact that my parents had kicked me out, even though I was a minor. I had developed a fear of the law after the run-in with the cops the first time, so that was one reason that I did not report my parents. And on top of that, I wasn't even sure if anything could be done about the situation because at the time I had come back from juvie, I was just 3 months away from turning 18. So, with no other option left, I decided to go to my grandparents and ask them to help me out. Luckily, they took me in, but that didn't mean that life got easy for me all of a sudden. I missed my parents terribly, especially considering the fact that they hadn't even spoken to me while I was in juvie. I was completely alone there, and my grandparents weren't exactly nice to me either. They were strict disciplinarians, but I guess I needed that back then. Anyway, I got depressed because I had to switch high schools and repeat my senior year because I had missed a huge chunk of it while I was away in juvie. And to add to that, I was really behind because I had been flunking out of all my classes as well. I had no friends, my parents didn't speak to me, and my grandparents had only taken me in so that I wouldn't end up homeless. But there was no love and affection for me. Naturally, I got pretty lonely, but I worked really hard. I got into a semi-decent college and tried my very best to turn my life around. I took out a student loan, worked my way through college, and as soon as I graduated, I thanked my grandparents by starting to pay them back for everything that they had done for me. And I got incredibly lucky too because about 2 years ago, I was offered a job as a graphic designer in a pretty successful firm. I figured out in my senior year that designing was what I wanted to do with my life, and not to brag, but I'm pretty good at it. I had worked pretty hard in the past, and I had applied to this firm with almost no hope of getting hired, but thankfully I did. And while I love my work, it's also a huge bonus that I get paid pretty well too. I'm pretty young, but I'm doing well for myself, and I'm proud of how far I've come. The only thing that continued to bug me, even after so many years had passed, was the fact that I hadn't been able to make amends with my parents. It's not that I hadn't reached out to them. I had tried to speak with them several times over the past couple of years, but I didn't have any luck. It was quite understandable because even though it was a stupid mistake of mine that got me cut off and kicked out, I still felt that it was a bit too harsh of them to do this to me because, after all, I was just 17. I was a total idiot, and they could have forgiven me as my parents, or at least they could have tried to get back in touch with me after I started. But that never happened. So, I learned to make my peace with it. And then, out of the blue, they suddenly reached out to me a week ago. My mom found me on Instagram and sent me a message saying that she would really like to invite me over for dinner, so I could reconcile with the family because it's been a really long time, and everyone has thought about it. They really do miss me, and they think that I've been punished enough. I was thrilled to read that message, and I instantly responded by accepting the invitation. I had no idea what was in store for me or the fact that they had any ulterior motives because I was just happy that I was going to have a chance at fixing things with my family again. The next day, even when I went over for dinner, everything was great. I got them flowers and chocolates. We drank together, and I filled them in on what was going on in my life. I even thanked them for inviting me and got a bit emotional while talking about how I had felt when I received the message from my mom. I thought that everything was going well, but then when we got to dessert, my parents started acting pretty fishy. They started telling me about my sister's influencer career and how Kelly had managed to garner almost 10,000 followers. But now the count wasn't increasing and it had become stagnant. I didn't know what they were building up to, and I even looked at Kelly to figure out what was going on. But then they finally dropped the bomb and told me that since they had found out that I was doing pretty well for myself right now, they wanted me to finance my sister's luxury lifestyle since that was her niche as an influencer. But right now, she was not making enough money to afford the kind of lifestyle that she wanted. So they wanted to go with the whole fake it till you make it approach and make it look like she could totally afford fancy, luxurious vacations and other stuff. But that would be all on my money. And while they were talking to me about it, I realized that this is why they had contacted me after so many years. This was the catch. They wanted me to use my hard-earned money to fund my sister's lifestyle, so she could pretend that she had a really cool and happening life on social media and propel her career forward. It was extremely humiliating that this is why they had invited me over for dinner, because they couldn't afford to do it themselves, or maybe they just didn't want to throw away their money over something as pointless as this either way. They were being really casual about it, and my mom even said that if I really wanted to make it up to them, this is how I could do it. So they were actually serious about it, and that's all that I needed to know. I finished dessert. I told them that I would need some time to think about it, and I behaved as if everything was normal while I was leaving. But I was actually furious on the inside, and as soon as I got home, I typed out an angry post about what had just happened and put it up on social media, tagging Kelly and my parents. I even set my account privacy settings to public. I forwarded my post to as many people as I could, and I told them to take it forward, and within a couple of hours, Kelly had started blowing up my phone. It was exactly what I had expected. She was mad and started asking me if I was crazy, told me that I was ruining her life and career, and told me to delete the post immediately. But I didn't. I just blocked her and let her stew for the rest of the night while I went to sleep. The next morning, when I woke up, I realized that a lot of people who knew Kelly personally but didn't like her had reached out to me personally to congratulate me on what I had done, because now her follower count has started dropping rapidly. She already only had 10,000 to begin with, which is not a very high number, and when I checked, it was around 9,000 now. Almost 1 week has passed, and I still haven't deleted that post, and it's at 7,000 at the moment. So she has lost almost 3,000 followers, all because of the post that I had made against her. And of course, she's extremely upset about it, and so are my parents, because they believe that this was totally uncalled for. Apparently, my post gained a lot of traction because, according to my family, girls from her high school and old friends had already been extremely jealous of her when she started blowing up on IG. They were just looking for an excuse to drag her down, and my post had given them exactly that. These people had shared and reshared the post, and that's how Kelly's decline in followers actually started. So now they're holding me responsible for it. I don't buy the whole situation that people who are jealous of her are doing this to get back at her. I'm sure there must be something deeper. But anyway, right now I'm only just worried about what they're threatening to do to me. So far, I've been ignoring all the messages that they have been sending me demanding that I take down that post. A couple of hours ago, they sent me a screenshot of them speaking to one of my dad's friends who happens to be a lawyer, and they have told me that they are going to be suing me if I don't take that post down right now. That post has become a bone of contention for us because I think taking that post would send the wrong message, like I'm scared of them or something. But then again, I'm not exactly sure if they really can sue me for this. If they can, then I'll be in big trouble, and I want to avoid that anyhow. Apart from that, I'm also really concerned about whether I'm doing the right thing or not, because the way they were speaking about the whole Instagram influencer thing, it was pretty evident that Kelly and my parents have decided that this is going to be her career in the future. So essentially, I am kind of ruining her career by exposing her like this. And on top of that, there's also the fact that initially it had been my mistake that had gotten me kicked out of the house, and I feel like I need to be grateful to my parents. But again, the way they got me to visit so sneakily doesn't sit right with me. They could have been honest and upfront with me, but they pretended that they were willing to forgive me only if I bought it from them. That's what my biggest gripe with the situation is right now, and I don't know if I'm entitled to feeling that way. So what do you guys think? Am I the a-hole for making a post against my sister and my parents and bringing down her influencer career? Edit. For those people asking what exactly I had posted, here it is. Hi. As a lot of you guys might have known, I haven't been in touch with my family for the past couple of years after I got kicked out when I was 17. I don't blame my parents for it. I was a problem child and a juvenile delinquent, and it caused them a lot of trouble and heartache. I deserved that. But in the past few years, I have improved my life and changed as a person. I have even tried to get back in touch with them several times, but they have never entertained me, and I haven't taken offense at that either. Even though I do think that they could have forgiven me at some point, because after all, I was just 17 and a huge idiot. Anyway, recently they reached out to me under the pretext of forgiving me. But when I got to their house, they started telling me that I had to fund Kelly's lifestyle so she could pretend that she could afford everything that she wanted to show off about on social media and grow as an influencer. Basically, they didn't want to invest in her, and she doesn't work. nor does she earn enough money from her influencer career at the moment. But instead of doing something about it, they decided to emotionally manipulate me into financing her instead. And I think that's pretty much the lowest thing that they could have done, especially when I had come to them in good faith, believing that maybe they would finally forgive me after so many years of no contact. I just want you guys to know about this so that you guys realize that her lifestyle has been based on a lie. Don't buy any of it because she's not selling the truth. That's for sure. Just like I didn't buy my parents' forgiveness by financing her luxurious lifestyle, which was pretty nasty of them to even try. This is all a farce, and I'm more than happy to be exposing her right now, even though she's my own sister. This was the caption, and the picture that I had posted with it was a family photo from ages ago. Most of the comments so far have been quite supportive, but I've also received a lot of hate comments from Kelly's friends. That doesn't matter to me though. I've only been standing up for the truth, and it's not like I've lied about anything in my post. It's all the truth. I haven't even tried to make myself look like the good guy here. I have admitted that I used to be a pretty problematic child back then, and I can't blame my parents for kicking me out. I have already received a bunch of comments saying that they can't exactly sue me for this as long as everything that I have mentioned in the post is accurate and honest. But I've spoken to my friends, and they have told me that they can still file a lawsuit for defamation or something like that because my post has significantly affected my sister's follower count, which is technically her career right now. So they actually can take me to court and try to disprove that any conversation that I have spoken about in my post had ever taken place. And then it's just going to be my word against theirs. So that's what I'm concerned about right now. Besides, given my history, they might even be able to succeed by bringing up my teen years, especially my stint in juvie, and making me look like the bad guy who wants to get revenge on them somehow by spreading lies about Kelly and my parents. Date 1. Hi. So I decided to cut my losses and take that post down because there is no telling what they might do if they actually went through with the lawsuit. It might become very lengthy. Whether I like it or not, I can't exactly erase my past. They can definitely try to make it seem like I was trying to ruin my sister's future as an influencer on purpose with that post and that I had been lying about them trying to get me to fund my sister's lifestyle, making it seem like I was only trying to ruin her reputation and career. And I don't want to waste my money on lawyers right now. Also, when I visited them for dinner, it was just me, my parents, and Kelly. There were no witnesses to confirm what I was saying. Neither was there any recording. And in their messages, they had been clever enough to make sure that they were not even implying anything, since all they had said was to take the post down. No mention of whether whatever I had spoken about was true or not. My grandparents would obviously not be helpful in this case, and I'm pretty sure that they would side with my family. In fact, I'm guessing that they are the people who told my parents that I'm doing well for myself now, which is how they found out that I'm earning a decent amount of money, and that's why they approached me. I can't exactly cut my grandparents out of my life, not that there is much to do there anyway, but I have been paying them back little by little, so I'm going to continue doing that, and I already don't really interact with them much, so I'm going to stick to that. I took the post down yesterday. I unblocked everybody, and I told them that I had taken the post down and now I do not want any drama from their end. After I had unblocked them and sent that message, Kelly immediately replied to that message and sent me a voice note cursing at me for almost a minute and a half and saying that she knew for a fact that I was doing this just because I was jealous of her and that it didn't matter that I had taken that post down because she had already lost a bunch of followers. She told me that I was lucky that our parents did not want to take this to court and wanted to end this here because if it had been up to her, she would have made sure that I paid for this. I could have ignored it, but just to be cheeky, I replied to her saying that I was thankful that she didn't have the money to take me to court herself and ultimately it was our parents who decided what was to be done because otherwise I would be in big trouble. And then, before she could reply to that, I blocked her again. So that's that, and I really hope that they don't reach out to me again and we can just put an end to this. Update 2. Hey, so something pretty interesting happened recently. It's been a week since I took my post down, and a couple of days ago, one of my acquaintances from high school reached out to me to ask if I had deleted that post. So I had to tell her that I had indeed archived it, and I also set my account back to private. So I found it pretty intriguing that she had decided to ask me about it, even though she doesn't even follow me. I asked her why she was interested in the post, and she went on to tell me that she wanted to read about it herself because she had been a little too late to hop onto the bandwagon. We got to talking after I explained to her exactly why I had to take that post down, because I was pretty sure that a lot of people had questions about this, and I hadn't yet addressed this publicly. Anyway, we were talking to each other about this, and that's how I found out that the reason my post had so much attraction and my sister had lost so many followers because of this was not because people had shared the post out of jealousy. It was out of resentment. And mostly, it was just to put Kelly in her place because apparently she had become a total pain after gaining a certain amount of followers on social media. I don't know how she got here. I guess last year one of her pictures went kind of viral and got a lot of likes, so that got to her head, and she started clicking more pictures that way, looking really aesthetic in expensive locations, wearing a lot of makeup, and flaunting luxury brands through her clothing and accessories. Some of it was borrowed, some of it was rented, but obviously nobody can figure any of that out from a picture itself. She was showing off a lifestyle that she didn't have, and you know how people on social media lap that kind of stuff up, so that's how her followers started growing, and she was quite active as well, which is how she ended up with 10,000. And as soon as she started growing, she started dropping her friends like hot potatoes. She developed an attitude problem and started fighting with all her friends, putting them down as if she was actually living the life that she was trying to portray, even though in reality she was still living with her parents, hadn't worked a day since she had graduated, and was pretty much just good for nothing. So naturally there was a lot of resentment against her, and that's why her friends decided to share my post a lot and make sure that everybody found out what kind of a fake and shallow person my sister actually was. I can't say that I'm surprised. I had guessed it in the beginning when my parents had said that the only reason my post was getting a lot of traction and attention was because my sister happens to have a lot of jealous girls who hate her, and I was just playing right into their hands. I guess I had mentioned in my previous post that I knew that it was probably not out of jealousy that these women hated her, and I was right. After speaking to this acquaintance, I found out that pretty much everybody from our high school knows what kind of a person Kelly is. Even though she used to be pretty bratty before, now she has lost even the few loyal friends that she used to have. So that was pretty interesting for me to find out. But unfortunately, I'm still not putting that post back up. It's just not worth it. The drama and the trouble. I would much rather let it go. Now, a lot of people in the comments of my previous update had said that I'm being cowardly, but I really don't think that that's the case. I had just weighed the pros and cons of the situation and decided that it was not worth it to keep that post up and let this go to court because I'm sure that eventually, if I hadn't deleted it, Kelly would have definitely talked our parents into filing a lawsuit for defamation against me. And like I have already explained several times by now, I have no concrete evidence to prove that what I was saying was true, but they do. Even though records are sealed, everyone knows that I have been sent to juvenile detention when I was a teenager. So it would be much easier for them to prove that I was a problematic person speaking out of my tongue to bring down my sister than for me to prove that they were in the wrong here. I don't think that I was being cowardly. I just think that I was being practical. But again, to each their own. Anyway, the bottom line is that for me, this drama is done now. But I don't want anybody else to think that I'm a coward. So I guess I'm going to post a public statement about why I had to take that post down. It's not exactly about what people think about me. It's just that I don't want them to think that people can do whatever they want and get away with it. Lucky for me, at least this time I'm going to have the proof that they threatened to take legal action against me, which is why I had to take that post down. I have that screenshot, so I'm just going to post that. Update 3. So, like I had said in my previous update, I put up a post earlier today. I posted the screenshot of the text that I had received saying that if I did not delete my post about Kelly and my parents, then they would take legal action against me. In the caption, I mentioned that this was the reason why I had taken my post down because I did not have any concrete evidence, and I could not let this go to court because that would lead to a lot of my money getting wasted, not just on the settlement but also on a lawyer. This is why I had decided to take my post down after a lot of deliberation. But I also mentioned that this was in no way me admitting that I was guilty or that I was defeated. It was important for me to let people know what the real situation was, so that they wouldn't come to their own conclusions and definitely wouldn't get to believe that people could say or do whatever they wanted and get away with it. I ended the post there. I didn't want to drag it out too much and create more drama. I hadn't expected this one to blow up the same way that the first one had. But surprisingly, even this one got a lot of attention from a lot of people. They were very supportive of me and nobody mentioned Kelly directly, but we all knew who we were talking about. Most of the comments were incredibly supportive and I really appreciate that. And it has been several hours, so I'm sure that Kelly and my parents must have found out about the post as well by now, but they haven't reached out to me to warn me against anything or throw a tantrum about my post yet. So I'm guessing that they're going to let this one go anyway. It's not like they can do anything about this post because it doesn't even mention them directly, and at least here I won't have any trouble proving anything. But whatever, I have said whatever it is that I have had to say, and I don't have any expectations from my family anymore. I guess I should have stopped expecting anything from them the day they kicked me out of the house itself. I hadn't never considered this, but there must have been a reason why I had to be such a troubled kid, and I don't mean to play the victim. I'm fully aware of the fact that what I had done in the past was really wrong, and I deserved the punishment. But there is also the fact that my parents had never been attentive enough to me. It was always about my sister, so naturally I acted out. I'm not saying that that's the only way I could have dealt with the situation. There must have been much better ways, but unfortunately that's the way I chose because I was an idiot. Even after finding out what I was doing, they were never gentle with me. They never tried to correct me, but would only get mad at me, telling me I was a disappointment and that they wished that I had never even been born. They would constantly compare me to my sister even after finding out how much trouble I was in, which just egged me on even more. I didn't mention this earlier in my post because honestly, I don't want to sound like I was whining about how my parents had treated me and like I was trying to justify my behavior. But now I think it's necessary for me to bring it up. I haven't ever spoken about these things to anyone else, mostly because it's been too personal to share. But now that I'm talking about it, I feel like I'm getting a lot of stuff off my chest. I honestly feel better now, and I don't think I want my family back in my life at any point in the future. I'm happy with my life as it is now. Now on to the next story. Story 5. My best friend didn't invite me to his wedding because I'm single, then asked me to watch his house during his honeymoon. His fiancée tried making excuses when I said no. For about 11 years now, I, 37M, have been pretty close with, let's call him John, 38M. We met at a job in my mid-20s and were pretty regular company up until the pandemic, where our hanging out, including a circle of mutual friends, has taken a decline but isn't extinct. John and his partner, let's call her Jane, 36F, have been together for about 8 years now, engaged for a little under 2 years. Both have a child from previous relationships, so they have taken trips with their kids nearly yearly, and I've been happy to help visit their home and check on things, take care of their animals, etc. while they're gone. I've helped them out with other projects/tasks over the years and, most recently, picked up Jane from the airport returning from a work trip and got her home this past winter during a snowstorm because my vehicle could handle it. Generally, I have been present and helpful on top of our base friendship. About 5 weeks ago, I found out from a mutual friend their wedding is coming up, and invites went out a while ago. Everyone in our circle but me was invited. As a gay guy, I've experienced being iced out of some of my straight friends' lives and events in ways minor and pronounced, but this one has definitely been something that has had me thinking about my time and energy with people. I decided I would take the hint and begin to distance myself. 3 days ago, John texts me asking if I am around in early to mid-August. I say I am. John asks if I wouldn't mind visiting like I have before to look after the animals and property. I said, sorry, I can't. He calls to talk about it. We run through the same conversation, polite but a bit tense, so I finally say, I just won't be visiting your home. After a moment of silence, I bring up that I'm disappointed that I appear to be the only person in our group of friends not invited to his wedding, and that I can't be helping like I have before if I'm just a background friend at this point. I wrap up the call positively and sincerely, wishing them a good wedding and trip and that maybe we can grab a drink soon. Jane reaches out 2 days ago, sending follow-up texts saying John is upset about what I said, and with her because she made the final calls about friend invites and that I am taking this the wrong way. There is only so much capacity and that the others in our friend group have partners that took up space. She adds that she hopes I'll change my mind and help them out because it would put John's mind at ease. I'm not entitled to the company of others or invitations to anybody's events, but am I wrong for setting my own boundaries in response to theirs? I try not to frame my friendships as transactional, but they obviously want something out of me here despite them not inviting me and then avoiding even bringing it up with me until they needed help with covering their honeymoon. Comments. Comment 1, NTA. This sounds like a really one-sided friendship, and that they are taking your friendship for granted. Why would you keep putting time and energy into them? OP. Like I said, we've been pretty close up until now, and I've happened to have the availability when they need it often enough where we've been close enough before that I didn't mind or feel taken advantage of. Jane has helped me as well in the past, and I try not to hold other people's lives and familial commitments against them. But I was trying to paint a concise picture given the character limit of being, I thought, close. This situation, like I said, definitely changed my perspective given the other friends invited, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't making their wedding about me. They approached me after excluding me. So far, people seem to agree, which I'm relieved about. Comment 2, NTA. Jane reaches out 2 days ago sending follow-up texts saying John is upset about what I said, and with her because she made the final calls about friend invites and that I am taking this the wrong way. There is only so much capacity and that the others in our friend group have partners that took up space. What a bogus excuse. If your friends need someone to check up on their animals and property when they are on their honeymoon after a wedding you weren't invited to, they can ask another friend or family member. The audacity of some people astounds me. I am a believer in putting the same energy into a friendship as you experience. OP. I don't pretend to be super savvy about wedding etiquette, and I realize every wedding is different and lines have to be drawn about who can come or not. But yeah, my mutual friend reaching out to me to coordinate plans for our friend group during the weekend of the wedding to find out I wasn't invited definitely stung and felt awkward, and my friend was in disbelief as well. Comment 3, NTA. Not even a little bit. And then to ask for help like it's no big deal, SMH. What did your friend group have to say about it? P. Definitely some surprise. The only reason I found out was because one of them, who lives a bit further away, reached out initially trying to coordinate some plans/get-togethers around the weekend of the wedding, assuming I'd been invited since me and John were close. I've let him follow up with the others as I didn't want to interject so close to the wedding and make it about me. Update. Yesterday afternoon, a few days after John made the initiating contact that led to this altercation, he reached out by text telling me the following. I want to take you up on that drink tomorrow if possible, and I want to apologize for my royal screw-ups in person. I agreed to meet. After we kicked off with a round of shots, John's first line was that he failed me as a friend in this situation. With non-family invites, Jane apparently seemed very preoccupied with a philosophy of couples over singles at the wedding, and he had previously voiced that he felt it was exclusionary and silly. But I guess Jane prioritized couples on the first round of friend invites and told John that it would be easier to fit in others after receiving RSVPs. John admitted he basically folded and felt ashamed enough that he could not find a way to tell me. He knew reaching out to me about that favor was a risk but took it anyway because he wanted someone he could trust, and my response was a materialization of everything he feared would happen and, in his words, deservedly so. He told me a wedding should be a gathering of your family and company who have been a part of your lives and who you want to be part of your lives, and I fit that bill to him by any measure. He, trying to accurately paraphrase, said, I've done more than most of the people on the guest list for him and his family over their relationship, including help making memories with trip coverages and helping build their back deck with him to share meals and host events over the last 6 years. He got visibly upset when he said, with the shot and the drinks we were sipping on kicking in, that he can't believe Jane even considered holding my single/dating status against me after I got her home safely during a snowstorm earlier this year, and that he did not more adamantly confront that reasoning the instant she voiced it. He is even more pissed for Jane reaching out to me in the manner she did after my original phone call with him. John acknowledged it would come off as hollow at this point, but after a few exchanges with Jane, said there would be no more nonsense, and I would at least get a proper invite and +1 if I wanted, and they would make it work if it was even desired by me at this point. He said he is not going to try to do panic damage control, but will be upfront with our circle. One has already dropped the wedding, and I guess another couple has said something else by his reporting. He was with me for his faults because he and Jane deserve the blowback, and he needs to earn trust back if it's at all possible. He has also made it Jane's problem to find a friend who can come out 9 days in a row to care for the home and pets. With a smirk, he said she's having a hard time securing it and may likely have to hire help. I told John the first really appreciated his owning up to this, and it was good to see the friend I had shine through here. I told him that I have always appreciated him and Jane's friendship, so it hurt when I was excluded and not even addressed. I felt that close enough anyway, and I obviously don't mean to complicate his wedding. I've always thought him and Jane were great for each other. Earnestly, I have supported them as best as I can, and I've been confused about what I have done or haven't done to be iced out. I also admitted it's hard to trust Jane again if she has been weighing the validity of my presence based on my relationship status, and added with some humor, "It's not like I haven't been trying, and you guys haven't met some of my previous long-term partners." He said he doesn't get it either, and she has at least one good friend who is single that she may have burned a bridge with as well over the wedding philosophy she had. I said the friendship is going to be changed and informed by this, at least very different for a while, and I know that you and Jane had a disagreement leading to this, but that I hope that the wedding goes on to be a good celebration. I informed him it feels best to take a pass on the invitation, but he said if there was a change of mind up to the last minute to let him know, which was kind, and he wasn't desperate/pushy about it. John said the fault is his for not stepping up on my behalf, that he is sorry, and while he feels I wouldn't expect otherwise, and I agree, he is very lucky to have her in his life and thinks their marriage is a positive development for them. He even told her this whole situation will have him questioning and second-guessing her judgment on social matters with his friends for the foreseeable future by his reporting. But, a credit to their relationship, this was quite a blow to her to hear from him, but one she accepted and apologized for after their arguments about the subject. Before we parted ways in the parking lot, we gave each other a bro hug, and John's voice broke a bit when he said he is sorry one last time, and I think mine did too when I forgave him. It was legitimately surprising and therapeutic to have John be so frank and accountable, but not unlike the friend I've known for most of my adult life. It was bittersweet being, all things considered, a makeup but also a breakup of sorts to what was previously an unquestioned and assumed strong trust in camaraderie. Maybe we can get there again, it seems possible, and it would be nice. I'm sitting here after weeks of big feelings, stewing on a different shade of big boy feelings now. Thanks for processing with me, Reddit. Additional information from OP. A lot of people had good things on the range of the spectrum to share with me, and I've done my best to respond to people without getting too consumed and doing other things that need to be done. I was happy for John to talk with me. Maybe commenters are right and they see me as something else than I thought we were as friends, and maybe I've got some work to do to assert myself and that I have been a doormat up to this point. I know I've got some soul-searching to do about me as a person and how I see myself with John and Jane and maybe my other friendships as well. This relationship felt a lot closer and authentic in a different time, but it's hard to paint a fuller picture of that after a situation like this. Things change. As tempting as it is to accept the invitation and be there for John, I think I trust my instinct to let this be, and if John meant what he said and if Jane comes around, they'll make the effort to follow up. I will be putting some distance for a while and time will tell. I'm glad we got a chance to talk because if it is the end, I feel good about giving him a chance to own it, and as I've gotten older, I appreciate the hard work of taking on uncomfortable stuff. I made some plans for that weekend with a couple other friends, which I'm looking forward to. Thanks for words and insights, Reddit. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Ex-wife abandoned us 15 years ago. Now she's back with her BF demanding custody of my daughter. My name is Tom, 35M, and I guess you could say I'm in a situation I never thought I'd be in. This all started back when I was just 20 years old. I met Megan, 35F, during our junior year of high school. She was everything to me. Smart, funny, and we just clicked in a way that made it seem like we were meant to be together. We were inseparable. We didn't get married, though. Marriage felt too big, too permanent, and honestly, we thought we had all the time in the world. We were just living life, two young people in love, trying to make it in the world. Back then, I was working my ass off trying to build a career in finance. I started off as an intern, getting coffee and running errands, but I knew that if I worked hard enough, I'd eventually move up. Megan, on the other hand, was a barista at a local coffee shop. She didn't make much, but we were surviving. We lived in this tiny apartment, but it didn't matter because we had each other. Life was good, or at least it seemed that way. Everything changed when Megan got pregnant. It wasn't planned, but we were excited in our own way. We were scared, sure, but we thought we could handle it. When our daughter, Mia, was born, it was the most beautiful, terrifying day of my life. Megan went through a brutal 14-hour labor, and I could see the toll it took on her. After Mia was born, Megan seemed different. She was struggling, but I thought it was just because of the exhaustion from the labor. I had no idea how bad things were going to get. The first few weeks after Mia was born were rough, to say the least. Megan became distant, almost like she was a different person. She'd spend hours just staring out the window, and when she did speak, it was to criticize me. She'd snap at me, call me useless trash, and it felt like nothing I did was ever good enough. I tried to be understanding, thinking it was just the stress of being a new mom. I was doing my best to juggle everything. Work, taking care of Mia, and trying to support Megan, but it was overwhelming. I'd come home after a long day, completely drained, only to find that Megan hadn't even touched anything. She'd be sitting there doing nothing while her daughter cried in the next room. I didn't know what to do. I was terrified of saying the wrong thing and making it worse. Then one day, I came home from work, and the house was eerily quiet. I walked into Mia's room, and there she was, crying her little lungs out in her crib. She'd been left alone for hours. I frantically searched the house, but Megan was gone. Her clothes, her personal items, everything was gone. No note, no explanation, nothing. I tried calling her, but her phone was off. I contacted her parents, her friends, anyone who might know where she went, but no one had any answers. After months of searching, I finally had to accept that she wasn't coming back. She had abandoned us just like that. Adjusting to single fatherhood was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. In the beginning, I was a mess. I was sleep-deprived, stressed out, and constantly worried that I wasn't doing enough for Mia. But I had a lot of support from my parents and my sister. They stepped in to help whenever they could, and I don't know how I would have managed without them. Slowly, I figured out how to balance work and taking care of Mia. It wasn't easy, but I made it work because I had to. As Mia grew up, I made sure she had everything she needed. She was a happy, well-adjusted kid, despite everything. I was honest with her about her mother leaving, but I kept the details vague. I didn't want to burden her with the full story, at least not until she was older. Mia was a bright, curious child, and she asked questions, but I always tried to keep my answers simple and reassuring. For years, my focus was entirely on Mia and my career. I didn't date much, didn't really have the time or energy for it. But when Mia turned 12, I met Olivia, 33F. We took things slow, and she was incredibly understanding of my situation. Olivia and Mia got along well, and that was important to me. After a while, Olivia and I fell in love, and we've been together ever since. Life was good. My career had taken off. Mia was thriving, and Olivia was a wonderful addition to our lives. So here's where things take a turn. A few weeks ago, I was out with Olivia, just grabbing dinner, when I got a frantic call from Mia. She was home alone, and Megan, yes, the same Megan who abandoned us 15 years ago, had shown up at our door, completely out of the blue. And she wasn't alone. She had some guy with her, Daniel, 40M, who she introduced as her boyfriend. Mia was in shock and didn't know what to do. When I got home, I was furious. Seeing Megan standing there in my house after all these years made me extremely angry. She was crying, apologizing, saying she needed to explain herself. Mia was just standing there wide-eyed, not knowing who these people really were. I lost it. I said some terrible things to Megan, things I probably shouldn't have, but I couldn't help it. She had no right to just walk back into our lives like nothing happened. After a while, we all sat down, and Megan started telling her story. She claimed that she had severe postpartum depression, and that's why she left. She said she spent the last 15 years finding herself and that Daniel had encouraged her to reconnect with us. According to her, she was finally ready to be a mother again and wanted to build a relationship with Mia. But that wasn't all. Megan had the audacity to suggest a shared custody arrangement. She actually believed she could just step back into Mia's life and play the role of the loving mother, as if the last 15 years hadn't happened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I laughed in her face and told her she must be out of her mind. I made it clear that there was no way in hell I was going to share custody with someone who abandoned their child. I told her and Daniel to get out of my house and that if they didn't leave, I'd call the police. I promised them that I'd be talking to my lawyer about my options and that if she tried anything, I'd make sure she regretted it. They left after that, but I could tell this wasn't the last I'd see of them. Now here I am, trying to figure out what to do next. Mia is curious about her mother, and I get it. She's 15 and she's never really known her. But I'm worried. I don't trust Megan, and I'm afraid she's going to try and worm her way back into Mia's life. I don't know what her legal rights are given that she abandoned us, but I'm not taking any chances. I'm doing my best to protect Mia while also respecting her curiosity. I've made it clear to her that it's okay to have questions, but that we need to be careful. Megan has shown she can't be trusted, and I'm not willing to let her hurt Mia the way she hurt me all those years ago. I guess what I'm asking is, am I the a-hole for refusing to let Megan back into Mia's life? Am I wrong for wanting to protect my daughter from someone who walked out on her without a second thought? Update 1. Since Megan showed up at our door, things have gotten increasingly chaotic. Before I came home with Olivia that night, Megan had managed to get Mia's phone number, and now she won't stop calling and texting her. She's been bombarding Mia with messages, saying how sorry she is, how much she loves her, and how she wants to make up for lost time. On top of that, Megan's been sending gifts, expensive ones too, jewelry, designer clothes, and even a brand new smartphone. Mia's overwhelmed, and to be honest, so am I. I've told Mia that she doesn't have to respond to anything if she doesn't want to, but I can see the confusion in her eyes. She doesn't know what to think or how to feel. But Megan didn't stop there. A few days ago, she showed up at Mia's school. She made a scene in front of the other students and teachers, practically begging Mia to talk to her. The school had to call me to come and deal with it. I had to drag Megan away, and she kept shouting that she'd do whatever it took to be part of Mia's life again. That night, Megan sent me a series of texts saying that if I didn't let her see Mia, she'd take legal action to get visitation rights. The whole situation is getting out of control, and I'm starting to worry about what Megan might do next. Given how things are escalating, I decided it was time to consult with a lawyer. I needed to know what Megan's rights were, if any, and what I could do to protect Mia. The lawyer told me that Megan's rights were minimal, especially since she abandoned us without a trace for 15 years. The fact that she left Mia as an infant and didn't attempt to make contact until now works heavily in my favor. He advised me to document everything, every call, every text, every gift, because this could be crucial if things go to court. The lawyer also suggested that I consider getting a restraining order, especially after the incident at Mia's school. He said that Megan's behavior could easily be seen as harassment and that a restraining order would send a clear message that her actions aren't acceptable. I haven't made a decision about that yet, but it's something I'm seriously considering. As if things weren't bad enough, Megan has been pulling out all the stops to manipulate the situation. She's been telling Mia that I'm turning her against her, that I've been lying about why she left, and even that I was abusive during our relationship. She's claiming that I cheated on her, which is completely untrue. It's like she's trying to rewrite history to make herself the victim, and it's infuriating. Mia hasn't said much to me about it, but I can tell it's weighing on her. Megan's also been reaching out to my family, trying to gain their sympathy, but they're having none of it. My parents and sister are furious with her, and they've made it clear that they don't support her. My mom even called Megan a selfish, heartless woman to her face, which honestly was satisfying to hear. But it hasn't stopped Megan from trying to turn people against me. She's desperate, and it's starting to show. Daniel, her boyfriend, has also gotten involved, and things have taken a darker turn. He confronted me at my workplace last week. He was calm at first, but then he started making veiled threats, saying that if I didn't let Megan see Mia, there would be consequences. I don't know what he meant by that, but it was enough to make me uneasy. I've started documenting everything, just in case. Something tells me this is only going to get worse. I'm starting to suspect that Megan and Daniel have ulterior motives. The way they've been acting, it's like they're after something more than just reconnecting with Mia. I've heard stories about people trying to regain custody just to get financial support, and it's making me paranoid. I'm worried that Megan might try to sue for back child support or even alimony, despite the fact that we were never married. I'm planning to document every interaction with Megan and Daniel from now on. I'm also going to have a serious talk with Mia about everything that's happening. She's old enough to understand the situation, and I need her to know that she can come to me with anything, no matter what. My top priority is keeping her safe, both emotionally and physically, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect her. I'm bracing myself for whatever comes next, but I can't shake the feeling that this is just the beginning of something much bigger. I'll update you all again soon if anything new happens. Thanks for all the support so far, it means a lot. Update 2. After everything that's happened, I decided it was time to sit Mia down and tell her the full story of what happened with Megan. Up until now, I've been holding back, trying to protect her from the uglier details, but I realize that she deserves to know the truth. She's been caught in the middle of this mess, and it's only fair that she understands what really happened. So, I told her everything. I explained how Megan and I were happy at first, how things changed after she was born, and how Megan became increasingly distant and eventually left us without a word. I also told her about the things Megan has been saying recently about me supposedly being abusive and cheating, and I made it clear that none of it was true. It was a difficult conversation, but Mia handled it better than I expected. She was upset, of course, but I could see a kind of relief in her eyes, like she was finally getting some answers to questions she didn't even know she had. After we talked, Mia told me that she needs some space from Megan. She said she doesn't want to see her or talk to her for a while, which I completely understand. I told her that whatever she decides, I'll support her. The next time Megan tried to reach out, Mia ignored her. When Megan realized that Mia wasn't responding, she showed up at our house again, demanding to see her. I had to physically block her from coming inside, and she started screaming and crying, saying that I was ruining everything. It got so bad that Daniel had to drag her away, kicking and screaming. I think that was the moment when I truly realized how unstable she is. Shortly after that incident, I received a notice that Megan was filing for custody and visitation rights. I wasn't surprised, but it still hit me hard. The idea of going through a legal battle over Mia was something I'd hoped to avoid, but it was clear that Megan wasn't going to back down. My lawyer and I prepared a counterfiling, citing abandonment, emotional harm, and her recent harassment. We included all the documentation I'd been gathering: the texts, the calls, the school incident, and the scene at my house. My lawyer was confident that we had a strong case, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. The court hearing started, and it was as stressful as you'd imagine. Megan and her lawyer painted a picture of a woman who had made mistakes but was now ready to be a mother. They tried to downplay the abandonment, framing it as a result of her supposed postpartum depression. But we had plenty of evidence to show that her actions went far beyond just a mental health issue. We argued that she had made no attempt to contact us for 15 years, and that her sudden reappearance was suspicious, especially given the timing and her boyfriend's involvement. As the legal battle went on, some shocking details came to light during the proceedings. It was revealed that Megan has a history of bipolar disorder, something she never disclosed to me when we were together. Apparently, she'd been diagnosed years before we even met but had kept it hidden. Her lawyer tried to use this as an excuse for her behavior, but it didn't do her any favors. It only reinforced the idea that she was unstable and unfit to have any custody over Mia. But that wasn't all. We also uncovered evidence that Megan and Daniel were in serious financial trouble. They were deep in debt, and it was becoming clear that they had ulterior motives for wanting to reconnect with Mia. My lawyer managed to dig up Daniel's criminal record, which included past charges of fraud. He'd been involved in several schemes to con people out of money, and it looked like he might have been trying to use Megan's situation as a way to get some sort of financial gain from me. This new information changed everything. It was clear that Megan and Daniel had been trying to manipulate the situation for their own benefit, and the judge wasn't impressed. The court ruled in my favor, dismissing Megan's case for custody and severely limiting her visitation rights. She was only allowed supervised visits with Mia, and those were to be determined by a court-appointed guardian. It was a huge relief, but the whole process left me and Mia emotionally drained. Update 3. Just when I thought things were starting to settle down, I got a call from an unexpected source: Megan's younger sister, Amy. Amy and I had been close when Megan and I were together, but after Megan left, we lost touch. I hadn't heard from her in years, so I was surprised when she reached out. She told me that she had something important to discuss and asked if we could meet up. Given everything that had been going on, I was curious, so I agreed. When we met, Amy revealed that she'd been aware of Megan's disappearance but had only recently discovered the full truth about what happened. Apparently, about 5 years ago, she learned that Megan had been lying about her life during the time she was gone. Amy didn't know all the details back then, but she didn't want to interfere in my life, fearing it would only cause more pain. However, after hearing about the custody battle and how Megan had been manipulating the situation, she couldn't stay silent any longer. Amy offered to testify against Megan in court, revealing the lies and deception that Megan had been hiding for years. She wanted to set the record straight and help protect Mia from getting caught up in any more of Megan's schemes. I was hesitant at first, but after hearing what she had to say, I realized that Amy might be the key to finally putting an end to all of this. Amy's testimony in court was eye-opening, to say the least. She revealed that Megan hadn't left because of postpartum depression or because she needed to find herself. The truth was far more damaging. Shortly after Mia was born, Megan had an affair with a guy who was a regular at the coffee shop where she worked. He was older, had money, and he promised her a life of luxury if she left everything behind and ran away with him. And that's exactly what she did. Megan and this guy disappeared together, living off his savings in different parts of the country. They lived a carefree life until his money started to run out. When their funds dried up, Megan dumped him and returned home. That's when she met Daniel, who was no stranger to financial schemes and saw an opportunity in Megan's situation. Together, they concocted a plan to reconnect with Mia and me, hoping to gain some sort of financial benefit, whether through child support, alimony, or simply by manipulating us into helping them out. For years, I've been carrying the guilt of not being able to keep my family together. And now I was learning that Megan had never intended to be a mother in the first place. She had just been looking out for herself, and Mia and I were nothing more than collateral damage in her selfish pursuit of a better life. The final nail in the coffin came when we dug deeper into Daniel's past. It turned out that he had discovered my recent success through mutual acquaintances. He knew I was doing well financially, and he saw Megan's connection to Mia as a potential gold mine. The plan was simple. Get Megan to reconnect with Mia, establish some sort of custody or visitation rights, and then sue me for back child support and whatever else they could get their hands on. Daniel's involvement was purely about money, and Megan went along with it because she was desperate. She saw it as a way to regain some of the life she'd lost when she ran out of money with her last boyfriend. But the plan backfired spectacularly. With Amy's testimony and the evidence we gathered, their house of cards came crashing down. As the truth came out, Megan's world fell apart. Her family, friends, and even the few allies she had left turned against her. They couldn't believe the extent of her deception, and she quickly found herself isolated. Daniel, who had been so supportive when he thought there was money to be made, abandoned her as soon as the plan failed. He cleaned out whatever money they had left and disappeared, leaving Megan with nothing. In the end, Megan had a complete mental breakdown. She was hospitalized briefly, and when she was released, she was a shell of her former self. The court dismissed her case for custody, and I was granted full custody of Mia, with no obligations to Megan whatsoever. Mia has been handling all of this remarkably well, considering the circumstances. She's angry at Megan for the lies and the manipulation, but there's also a part of her that pities her mother. After everything that's happened, Mia decided that she wants to maintain minimal supervised contact with Megan, just to see how things go. I've agreed to it as long as it's on her terms and in a safe environment. Update 4. Throughout all of this chaos, Olivia has been my rock. She stood by me, supporting me through every twist and turn, and I don't know how I would have gotten through this without her. After everything settled down, I started thinking more about our future together. Olivia has been a part of Mia's life for years now, and she's been nothing but loving and supportive. I realized that I was ready to fully commit to her, to start a new chapter in our lives. A few weeks ago, I took the plunge and proposed to Olivia. It wasn't some grand, elaborate proposal, just a quiet, intimate moment between the two of us, but it was perfect. She said yes, and now we're planning our wedding. After everything that's happened, it feels good to focus on something positive, something that represents a fresh start for all of us. As for Megan, she's been maintaining sobriety and is seeking treatment for her bipolar disorder. I've heard through the grapevine that she's been trying to turn her life around, but it's hard to say how genuine her efforts are. She's been allowed monthly supervised visits with Mia, but those are strictly monitored and on Mia's terms. It's been a difficult adjustment, but I think it's been a good step for Mia in terms of closure. Megan has a long road ahead of her if she ever wants to rebuild any sort of trust with Mia. For now, their contact is limited, and that's the way it's going to stay until Mia decides otherwise. I've made it clear that I won't allow Megan to hurt her again, and I'm keeping a close eye on everything to ensure that doesn't happen. Thank you to everyone who's offered advice and support along the way. Your words have meant more to me than you could ever know. We're moving forward now, ready to heal and build a future that's free from the shadows of the past. Now on to the next story. Story 7. After paying their mortgage for years, my sister showed up with a can of red paint to ruin my wedding. Now she's claiming my house is hers. They sued me for the house, I paid for the dog they abandoned for hurting the family. But this time the judge heard my voice. I was urged by my parents to spend the holidays at home. They left me to dog sit while they went on a lavish vacation without me. After a 5-hour journey, I refrained from arguing. I simply grinned. However, they began to scream when they returned and witnessed this. Let's go back. I received the first text in early December this year. Will you be returning home? It would mean a lot to your dad and me, she continued. Then came the one that really got to me. Without you, the holidays aren't the same. I spent a lot of time staring at that one. It was the type of message I had been hoping for years. A statement I had practiced hearing so many times that I didn't even question it when it finally arrived in my inbox. I grinned. The work had been harsh. There weren't enough people on my team. My sleep routine had changed to include naps in between Zoom sessions. However, I reminded myself, they miss you. They asked for you. So I did what I don't often do. I took a break. I cleared 5 complete days, but it took a whole week of arguing with my manager, changing deadlines, and promising to check in just in case. I purchased a ticket. I even brought along a couple modest presents. I hoped we would actually converse, play board games, and laugh at corny holiday films. It was a lengthy and painful flight. Something that smelled like hot, cheese-dipped feet was consumed by my seatmate. I didn't care, though. The kind of foolish optimism that endures years of disregard and yet appears with a bow on its head was buzzing through me. With my suitcase in hand and a smile on my face, I got out of the Uber. At that moment, I witnessed my dad's car's trunk opening and 3 big suitcases being crammed inside. I had a fleeting feeling that they could surprise me. Perhaps we were traveling together. This might have been part of the idea. I was witnessing my holiday fantasy evaporate in real time. But then my mom saw me and waved happily. When she called, "There she is. Just in time." I blinked. Just in time for what? She stated, "The cruise." As though it were clear. We didn't want to leave Bentley alone. She pointed to the dog, who was standing behind the front door watching me. I believed I had misheard. "You're going on a cruise?" My dad said, "Just a quick getaway," and slammed the trunk. "We've had a stressful year." Josh, who was in the passenger seat, smiled at me. "You'll be fine here, you love quiet. This is perfect for you." He said it as if I were a robot or a rice cooker, something made especially to work in silence. My mother gave me a folded list called Bentley's Holiday Routine, while I stood there, still holding my suitcase. It contained items such as rub his ears clockwise, not counterclockwise, and lavender diffuser at 8 p.m. I said nothing at all. I simply grinned and nodded, as I always do when I'm trying not to cry. Already preoccupied, they gave me a quick embrace. I was reminded by my mother to keep Bentley from eating cheese. I was instructed to pick up a delivery that was supposed to happen on Wednesday by my dad. After that, they got into their vehicle and drove off. Nobody inquired about my flight experience. Nobody asked me to accompany them. Nobody even inquired about my meal. And suddenly, I was by myself at a home that I own. I haven't lived with a dog in years, but I officially adopted him since I couldn't refuse my younger brother's request. I secured the door. Bentley crouched at my feet, tail wagging unsurely as he padded over, whispering, "Hi, buddy." I knelt down to stroke him. He had the stench of wet socks and dirty comforters. He appeared leaner than I remembered, and his fur was coarse. He had no water in his bowl. He had 2 long nails, and something twisted inside of me. I sat down on the couch, filled his drink, removed the food they had left, and gazed at the flickering Christmas lights as if they were about to rearrange themselves into an apology. However, nothing took place. There was silence in the house. The heat turned on. Bentley balled himself up. I had a strong belief that this year would be different, that perhaps they were at last prepared to see me as their daughter, not just as the one who sends the money when the car breaks down or the kitchen renovation goes over budget. Their sister. I was mistaken. I felt foolish for ever holding that belief, for always believing that they would eventually find me worthy of staying at home if I put in enough effort, achieved enough success, or proved myself helpful enough. Rather, they viewed me as an easy fix. Dog care is free, as well as integrated home security, on-time arrival of their own tiny robot. I made an effort to shake it off. That was what I had done all my life, making justifications for them. Not personal, I told myself. Because it was simply difficult to love me, that perhaps if I made a few more changes. I tried not to cry as I rubbed my temples. The scent of candle wax and cinnamon filled the air. There were decorations all around me that I hadn't hung. They didn't thank me for paying off the house, watching a dog that they no longer cared for as soon as the novelty wore off. What's the worst? I still desired a call from them even so. I wanted them to reverse the vehicle and say, "We're sorry. We didn't realize. We love you. Please come with us." However, they refused. They didn't. Bentley sighed quietly as he slept. After giving him a long look, I went to the kitchen and turned on my laptop. Really, I had no idea what I was looking for, but I was certain that I couldn't continue to act as though this was the norm, since it wasn't. And perhaps, just possibly, I had had enough of waiting for someone else to notice. Bentley cuddled himself on the couch beside me, putting his weight on my leg, as if it would help me stay attached. He smelled of old shoes and melancholy, and his fur was patchy and matted. I didn't mind, though. The only one who hadn't gone was him. No one came out to say, "Surprise! We didn't actually abandon you. We were just kidding. We do love you." I continued to stare at the empty living room as if I was still expecting for someone to do so. I had no idea why it struck so forcefully. Perhaps because I had persuaded myself that I was more important than I actually was, that they would ultimately regard me as more than just the girl who paid for things if I simply continued to provide. Perhaps as someone they desired to be around. I always believed that they would let me in if I could simply correct whatever was wrong with me. Growing up, I assumed that something about me must be flawed. There was a missing component that caused folks to shrug rather than embrace. It was me who was strange, the silent one, the girl who color-coded her books, who enjoyed creating Excel spreadsheets, and who liked math problems more than makeup. When I was 10 years old, my mother half-jokingly remarked, "You weren't the easiest child to bond with." Everyone said that my brother's taunting of me was simply an expression of their affection. They said I was overly sensitive when I sobbed, so I stopped crying. That also didn't help. On one of my birthdays, I believe I was 8 years old, they threw me a party. I was ecstatic. My brothers even claimed to have invited the kids from the neighborhood. I brought out cupcakes that I had prepared myself and donned my finest clothes. However, there were no individuals in the yard when I arrived, just a sheet of paper with arithmetic problems and numbers on it, taped to the fence. Josh had chuckled and said, "Your kind of party." After that, they all hurried to another person's house for the actual party. I spent hours sitting on the porch steps. Even the equations were solved by me. Perhaps it was the secret, I thought. Perhaps they would return if I figured them all out. They didn't. I believed that I could fit in better by high school. I made an effort to chuckle when appropriate. Despite the fact that the garments didn't feel like mine, I borrowed them from Dorothy in order to avoid looking strange. I practiced smiling in front of the mirror and joined clubs that I didn't care about. I was still referred to as intense, aloof, and somewhat robotic. I once heard Dorothy say, "You're not ugly." I tried to learn how to act like a real girl, but you simply don't know how. Even so, I was the one who was overlooked for the invitation, the person who solely received thank you texts in response to Venmo requests, the person who was often told, "You're just really hard to get close to." My parents did not attend my graduation, saying, "We're proud of you, honey, but just don't let it go to your head." I was accepted to an Ivy League school. They claimed that plane tickets were too costly, until I saw pictures from Josh's birthday vacation to Cabo that same week. I thought they were real. They simply had a stronger bond with him. I told myself that it wasn't intimate, that they would start seeing me if I could simply be more of anything. I received my degree. I was hired. Whenever they requested money, I sent it. The mortgage on the home they occupied was paid by me. In fact, I assisted Dorothy during her divorce. Perhaps, I reasoned, charity could take the place of intimacy. Perhaps if I put enough effort into them, I would ultimately make up the difference. However, if someone has chosen not to love you, no amount of offering can change that. I finally felt it, not anger, nor even betrayal, as Bentley snorted against my hip while I sat on that couch. Only a faint, sluggish realization. In their lives, I served as a stand-in, a human-sized financial strategy. And I felt like the world's most stupid person because I ever believed I could be greater. I surveyed the mess they had left behind. There is food on the counters, soiled dishes, boxes that are not fully packed. Even when I was returning home for the first time in a year, they seemed unconcerned about keeping the property tidy, because I wasn't truly a guest in their eyes. The assistant was me, the accountable one, the integrated safety net. Bentley appeared thinner than I had recalled. His water bowl smelled strange, and his nails were too long. He gave a small whine when I knelt down to scratch behind his ears, as if he had been waiting weeks for someone to notice him. My head was leaning on the wall. Perhaps I was the issue after all. I could be difficult to adore, too silent, too weird, too clinical. In an attempt to identify the exact moment I became invisible, I relived every interaction I had ever had with my family. Perhaps I shouldn't have gone. Perhaps my success made me conceited. Perhaps I gave up trying. Or perhaps they made no attempt at all. I formerly believed that setting limits was a sign of selfishness, because the only ones who said no were those who were unkind, that sacrifice was necessary for love, especially when it was painful. Now, though, I just feel small now and worn out and finished. As I got up, Bentley groaned softly. I filled his bowl with new water and offered him a treat I had discovered in the pantry. I then went to open my laptop at the kitchen table. I just knew that something had finally changed inside of me, but I had no idea what I was doing. Not broken, not detonated, simply moved. I spent a considerable amount of time looking at the search results after typing, "What to do if a family lives in your house rent-free?" I wasn't sure if I would actually follow through on anything. My sense of authority was lacking. I was not feeling smart. I simply felt finished. Let them say I overreacted and was aloof. Let them express themselves as they see fit. They had it already. Bentley pressed his nose against my palm. After giving him a gentle head rub, I muttered, "If there's something wrong with me, at least I'm finally doing something about it." In one of the articles, I hit print. Slowly, as if unsure, the paper slipped off the tray. It was a Sunday evening when they returned. I remained there due to a family emergency. My supervisor let me work from home. Bentley sprung out of his dog bed and gave a bark that was more startled than happy, so I knew exactly when the car pulled into the driveway. My heart was racing more than I wanted to acknowledge as I remained motionless in the corridor. It was like hearing an alarm in a once secure area. The car door slammed. Loud, familiar, reckless voices. "I told you she'd be fine," my mother said. "She loves quiet time. She probably reorganized the pantry for fun," said Josh. More giggling. I remained motionless. Through the peephole I observed. The first person to notice was Dorothy. She pulled once more after jiggling the handle. I pictured the gradual boil of entitlement building as her brows knotted in perplexity. "Why is the door locked?" Dad gave his key a try. Nothing. Josh took the next step and attempted to shoulder it. I snatched Bentley up before he could become even more agitated when he barked once more. Louder this time. My arm shook a little, but not because I was afraid. Another stuff. Something more subdued. Final. Then there was a knock. "Nicole, open up." The lock jammed. Bentley and I sat on the couch as I caressed his ears. One more knock. Then it was more difficult than the beating of fists. "Nicole, what the hell? Did you change the locks?" I didn't respond. I had changed the locks 3 days after they departed. I was practical, not angry, though I had plenty of emotion. The home was in disarray. Bentley had been left behind. Damage was evident in several of the rooms. Doors were not locked, trash was overflowing. I had every right to safeguard the house because I was the rightful owner. Before taking any action, I spoke with a lawyer. They returned with the expectation that everything would still center on them. "You can't do this. This is our house," cried Dorothy. The floodgates opened at that point. "Nicole, open this damn door right now. We trusted you with the dog and the house, and you don't get to just lock us out like some kind of... It's not solely yours. However, it has been all along. This place was intended to be transitory when I purchased it 6 years ago, a backup plan while they were living here. I paid the mortgage until they were able to support themselves again. They never departed for some reason. In their imaginations, the house somehow became theirs, and I turned into some kind of landlord who owed them regular revenue in silence. Slowly, I got to my feet. My hands were shaking, but not in the same way. Fear wasn't the reason. Adrenaline was the cause. My decision is being followed by my body. I approached the front door but chose not to open it. I only used the closed frame to speak. I stated, "I secured the property." In a firm voice, "You left it in poor condition. Bentley was neglected. The house was unlocked." I spoke with a lawyer. "Quiet," then loud and furious. "Dorothy, you're insane. You can't just change the locks because you feel like it." "I didn't feel like it," I answered. "I'm the legal owner, and I did what was necessary to protect my home." Josh began shouting that he was going to sue me. When Dad suggested that we skip church for my math competition, his voice soared to a level I hadn't heard since I was 15. "You ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you." I chuckled. I didn't intend to. I was shocked by the sudden, piercing, breathless sound that came out. I said again, "Everything you've done for me? You mean the financial black hole? Free babysitting? Or did you joke about leaving me alone with arithmetic problems at the birthday party?" More shouting. I turned to leave. I informed my lawyer over the phone that they had arrived. She instructed them not to open the door and to inform them that any correspondence should henceforth be sent through her office. Josh then tried to pry open the kitchen window by going around the side from the porch. Dorothy let out a shriek. The neighbors could hear my mom sobbing as she stood in the yard, incredulous that the waitress had just given him the bill. My dad paced. I made a police call. I gave the deed, pictures of the house's condition, and the veterinarian's report from Bentley's examination to the authorities. When they got there, the cops were composed and competent. They turned to my dad, one of them. "Sir, she owns the house. There's no lease agreement. She has every legal right to secure the property." My mother sobbed, "You're just going to let her do this to us?" According to the officer, she hasn't done anything illegal. Nobody stood up for my family for once. Nobody made me the antagonist by twisting the narrative. There were no jokes about me or pitying glances. Just the facts, just limits, just hearing me out. The police suggested that they depart and allow any disagreements to be resolved through official legal procedures. My family was astonished, incensed, and embarrassed as they stood there, but they eventually departed. Their car backed out of the driveway, and I watched from the window. I was flipped off from the passenger seat by Dorothy as she turned. Josh yelled something that I was unable to hear. My mother didn't turn around, and I didn't feel like the one left behind for the first time in my life. Uncomfortably, Bentley climbed into my lap, grounding me with his weight. Whispering, "I think we're going to be okay," I said. I had always hoped that they would accept me if I simply repaired myself, that they would notice me if I put forth enough effort, smiled enough, and contributed enough. But I didn't need to be fixed. Perhaps I wasn't broken. Because I was the quiet one, it might have made me mine. I refrained from crying. I thought, but no tears remained. Just a strong, throbbing feeling of something else. Power, calm, release. I no longer felt wounded or angry, just finished. And that can be stronger than anger at times. That should be the end of it, I thought. However, when entitlement has been their love language for decades, individuals like my family don't lose quietly. After they went, I began getting emails 3 days later. My dad came last, followed by my mother and sister. Confusion gave way to anger and then to desperate manipulation. You've embarrassed us. We don't understand why you're doing this. You're being dramatic, Nicole. This isn't like you. And lastly, Dorothy's icing on the cake. You seriously need help. I didn't answer. I sent all of this to my lawyer. The escalation followed. Assuming I would be away, they attempted to break in once more, this time in the middle of the night. The security video captured Josh and my dad attempting to force the back door with a crowbar as the motion sensor lights turned on. Once more, the police arrived. Thanks for watching and sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next drama-filled episode. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My grandfather left me a pocket watch worth over $55,000. But my sister stole it and secretly sold it to her boyfriend's father. My grandfather, a superb watchmaker, ran a little shop for 45 years. His most valuable possession was a custom pocket watch that he made himself. It's gold with intricate engravings and has been featured in several horology journals. The watch features a distinctive double-case design with our family crest engraved on the inner case, and the mechanism inside contains significant breakthroughs made by my grandfather over his career. My grandpa always said that the watch would belong to the first grandson who pursued a career in engineering, because he considered engineering as the modern evolution of his art. I studied mechanical engineering, worked hard in college, and even took watch repair lessons in his memory. In my final year of university, I prepared a thesis on the evolution of watchmaking processes using my grandfather's techniques as a case study. He attended my graduation and told everyone at the celebration lunch that I would carry on his legacy. When my grandfather died 5 years ago, my entire family decided that the watch would be passed down to me in accordance with his wishes. The trouble arose when my sister withdrew the watch from our grandfather's possessions before they could be properly divided. She offered to help clean up his house as I was preparing for the memorial event. When I questioned her about the watch later, she claimed her grandfather discreetly informed her that he had changed his mind and wanted her to keep it because she appreciated beautiful things and had an eye for artistry that I allegedly lacked. This made no sense considering what he had said over the years, but I didn't want to stir up unnecessary controversy during this terrible time. Last month, I learned that my sister had sold the watch to her boyfriend's father, an antique watch collector. She did not tell anyone in her family. I recently found out since the boyfriend's father posted his excellent acquisition on a watch collector's website that I frequent. He described getting it from his future daughter-in-law and shared pictures of my grandfather's watch. He provided technical details about the movement that confirmed it was built by my grandfather. When I challenged my sister, she shrugged and said, "It was just dust in my drawer, but at least someone is using it now." I explained to her that the watch was intended to stay in our family and represent our grandfather's legacy. She continued, "Well, it is done now. Perhaps you should have spoken up sooner." I called the buyer and explained the problem, but he refused to return it, claiming he paid a fair price and the transaction was legitimate. He pushed me to work things out with my family and not involve him in our disagreements. I then attempted to barter with my sister about splitting the money she received, but she said she needed it all for a down payment on an apartment with her boyfriend. When I asked her about the watch's familial significance, she sneered and replied, "Oh please, it's just a thing. Grandfather is gone and doesn't care what happens to his stuff anymore." After getting nowhere, I consulted with a lawyer who believes I have a strong case based on documented family understanding of my grandfather's wishes. Several family members have witnessed him express his intentions for the watch several times throughout the years. I filed a lawsuit against both my sister and the buyer. My sister is telling everyone that I am an exploiter who is trying to ruin her life over a watch. She has claimed on social media that I am consumed with material possessions and attempting to impede her future happiness. My parents differ. My father believes I am correct in fighting for my inheritance, whilst my mother says I should give it up to protect family harmony. She keeps saying that your grandfather would not want to see his family split up like this. Several relatives, including my aunt, have messaged to say they remember grandfather's wish vividly and will testify if necessary for going to court rather than admitting it's gone. Additional information. For those who are wondering why I did not push harder at first, I was dealing with my own sadness and did not want to add to the family's stress. I honestly believed my sister would treat the watch with respect, even if she had convinced herself it was hers. Knowing she sold it makes it feel like she sacrificed a piece of our family history and grandfather's heritage for quick cash. The watch has more than just monetary value. It represents the completion of my grandfather's effort and was meant to be passed down through generations. My grandfather spent 3 years designing and building that watch, often working late into the night to perfect each component. He viewed it as his finest. Update 1, February 2025. Thank you to everyone who responded to my initial article. The situation has altered unexpectedly, so I wanted to provide an update. After filing the complaint, I discovered further details regarding what happened. My sister didn't just take the watch off. She convinced our uncle, who was helping to sift grandfather's belongings, that grandfather had changed his mind. Uncle Mark confirmed this when I approached him about perhaps testifying. He apologized profusely, adding that my sister had informed him that Papa had approached her during his final hospital stay and expressed concern that I would not appreciate the watch's beauty and would be more interested in the mechanical aspects. She apparently informed Uncle Mark that grandfather was anxious that I might disassemble the watch to investigate its mechanism or store it rather than properly displaying and enjoying it. Uncle Mark, who understands nothing about watches, thought this convincing enough to overturn years of hearing his grandfather's genuine preferences. This interaction supposedly happened when I was getting coffee in the hospital cafeteria. Nobody else saw it. Uncle Mark handed over the watch without more questioning since he wanted to respect his grandfather's final wishes. When I asked him why he never addressed me, he explained that he didn't want to hurt my feelings and assumed my sister would keep an eye on the family. I got statements from 3 more family members who confirmed their grandfather's initial desire for the watch to go to his grandson who studied engineering. My cousin, who visited Papa frequently in his final months, confirmed that he mentioned the watch to me 2 weeks before his death. He even remembers his grandfather giving him a small journal in which he documented the evolution of the watch, explaining that he was keeping it for me to study when he died. After searching over his belongings, my sister noticed that the journal was missing. The litigation is moving forward, but it is costing more than I expected. I've already paid $3,800 in legal expenses, and my lawyer estimates the total would be $12,000 if this goes to trial. The watch is worth roughly $45,000 due to its unique design and my grandfather's minor celebrity in the watchmaking profession. Some collectors believe it might be worth much more because of its history and documented development process. My sister has escalated her campaign against me. She posted photos of the watch to social media with the caption, "Remember that family heirloom my brother is suing over? It looks much better on its new owner than collecting dust in some engineer's drawer." Her lover explained, "Some people can't stand seeing others happy." One of her friends said that I was jealous of her relationship and intended to damage her future. I've blocked most of these people to avoid reading hateful comments, but mutual family members continue to send me screenshots. When confronted at a family breakfast last week, my sister stormed off, alleging that I've always been jealous of her relationship and am seeking to wreck her down payment plans for spite. She said I didn't care about the watch until I found out she had sold it, which is completely incorrect. I asked about it several times after Granddad died. Our mother followed her out, and Dad and I lingered in awkward silence for 20 minutes before he suggested we go get dessert. Later that evening, my father told me that he agrees with my viewpoint but wishes there was a way to resolve this without going to court. He added that my sister has been struggling financially for the past year after losing her work during a corporate downsizing, but she has been too proud to inform the family. This does not justify her decision to sell the watch, but it does provide some background for her financial difficulties. My first court date is scheduled on March 17th. I'll update again after that. Despite the cost and family conflict, I am determined to reclaim my grandfather's legacy. If the watch cannot be returned, I would like to receive recognition that it was illegally removed and sold, as well as some form of reparation that reflects its true monetary and personal value. For those who are wondering why I am wasting money on legal expenses, the answer is that it is not about money. The watch represents my bond with my grandfather and the traditions he wanted to foster in our family. If I back out now, I risk believing that family preferences are worthless when someone decides to take advantage for personal benefit. The amount I am spending may appear disproportionate to those who are solely concerned with money, but some things are worth fighting for regardless of the cost. Update 2, March 2025. Court proceedings have begun, and things have become messier than I anticipated. The first hearing was held on March 17th, and while no final verdict was reached, several key developments occurred. My uncle testified about how my sister persuaded him to give her the watch, admitting that he now suspects he was duped. He submitted emails shortly after my grandfather's death in which I specifically asked about the watch, contradicting my sister's claim that I had no interest in it. Two of my relatives and my grandfather's old apprentice all testified that they had heard grandfather clearly explain his plans for the watch multiple times over the years. The apprentice, who is now a great watchmaker, explained the piece's technical worth and why grandfather would have wanted it to go to someone who appreciated its technological developments. The buyer, my sister's boyfriend's father, arrived with an attorney, claiming that he purchased the item in good faith and should not be punished for family issues he was unaware of. His lawyer displayed screenshots of text messages between my sister and the buyer negotiating the sale, which revealed something quite unpleasant. My sister told him about the watch's family history and my grandfather's wishes for me, but she stated I didn't want it anymore because I had switched to digital watches. This is completely incorrect. I only wear mechanical watches out of respect for my grandfather's craft, including one he repaired while I was in college. The buyer's attorney said that even if my sister obtained the watch unlawfully, his client was an innocent third party with no reason to challenge her right to sell it. My lawyer said that the texts show he was aware of the potential complications with the sale yet went forward nevertheless. The judge became concerned about this point and requested additional evidence regarding what the buyer knew and when. My sister's testimony was full of inconsistencies. She claimed her grandfather changed his mind on his deathbed, but later revealed that he had expressed qualms about me acquiring the watch for years. When questioned for specific examples or witnesses to these conversations, she was unable to provide any except private conversations. When asked about the journal chronicling the watch's creation, she became defensive, first denying knowledge of it, then claiming it was lost during house cleaning, and finally admitting she may have misplaced it when going through her grandfather's belongings. The most shocking moment came when the financial details were revealed. My sister sold a family heirloom for less than 40% of its evaluated value, with the buyer paying $17,500 instead of $55,000 for the watch. When everything became clear, my sister broke down and confessed that she needed the money immediately to put down a deposit on an apartment she and her boyfriend wanted before someone else bought it. She claimed she looked up watch prices online but was bewildered by different price models and felt she was getting a fair deal. The buyer stated that he was aware that the watch was worth more, but he believed $17,500 was reasonable because my sister needed cash immediately. When asked if he had considered the ethical implications of buying a family heirloom at a large discount from someone clearly in financial need, he stated he would have paid more but did not communicate this information with her. He said that business is business and everyone makes their own decisions. Legal fees have already reached $7,200. My savings account has suffered substantially, but the judge is sympathetic to my case, particularly after text conversations revealed that my sister misrepresented the situation to the buyer. My lawyer believes that this will considerably help our case. Outside the courthouse, my mother finally broke the silence. Rather than supporting either side, Mom criticized both of us for destroying the family over financial issues. She then admitted that she has been suffering from health issues, which she has kept secret because everyone is too preoccupied with fighting over a blasted watch to notice. She has been attending doctor's appointments alone. This stunning news startled everyone, and my father immediately left with her without speaking to either me or my sister. I attempted to phone both parents later that evening but received no response. My cousin later told me that Mom had been experiencing troubling symptoms for months before being tested, indicating abnormalities that necessitated further evaluation. She is scheduled for more treatments next week. The fact that she kept this from everyone while we were working on the lawsuit has caused me to reassess my priorities, but I still believe in the concept behind my case. The next court date is planned on April 8th. The judge has encouraged us to reach an agreement before then, indicating that the most equitable way would be for the buyer to return the watch in exchange for a refund for my sister. Because my sister has already spent the majority of the money, this creates an extra problem. My lawyer suggested that I provide the refund myself to facilitate the watch's return and then pursue payment from my sister over time, essentially buying back what should have been mine in the first place. I started into this wanting justice, but suddenly everything feels more entangled than I could have anticipated. Still, I can't bring myself to give up when we're so far into the process. Additional information. In response to comments suggesting that I should prioritize my mother's health before the lawsuit, of course she comes first. Since the revelation, I phoned both of my parents, offered to drive my mother to appointments, and assist her in any way I could. Dad has reacted with a fast SMS explaining that they require room. This case is more nuanced than just choosing between family health and possession. Both are happening at the same time, and dropping the litigation now will not magically cure the other issues that have emerged. In reality, without a clear outcome, the watch situation will likely remain stressful indefinitely. Update 3, April 12, 2025. The court case has taken unexpected turns, so I'd like to provide another update. The anticipated April 8th hearing took place. However, there were some surprising developments. 3 days before the hearing, my sister's boyfriend's father, the watch buyer, contacted us through his lawyer to offer a settlement. He promised to return the watch if my sister refunded his money. Because she had spent the majority of it, he proposed a payment plan in which she would repay $500 per month until the debt was paid off. He also requested a written statement confirming that he was unaware of the disputed ownership when he purchased it. Apparently, he is concerned about his reputation in collector circles. This seemed like a reasonable choice, so my lawyer and I agreed on the terms, subject to my sister's approval. My sister did not show up to the hearing. Her lawyer arrived very concerned, claiming that he couldn't reach her and had tried calling her since the previous evening. The judge was clearly annoyed, gave her 48 hours to appear before considering a default ruling. Her lawyer admitted off the record that he had not received full compensation for his efforts and was unwilling to continue protecting her rights without communication. Later that evening, I received a call from my sister's boyfriend. He also mentioned that my sister had packed some belongings and left their flat 3 days prior after a furious argument about the watch issue. Apparently, he persuaded her to accept the settlement offer, sparking a heated dispute over loyalty and support. He hadn't heard from her since, except for a text saying she needed time to think things through. He sounded genuinely concerned and even apologized for his father's role in the matter, admitting that he had first advocated the acquisition because it appeared to be a good business opportunity. My parents were engaged at this time, filing a missing person report after discovering that no one she knew had seen her in 2 days. My sister's location became more important than the litigation. Dad dispatched family members to explore the locations she visited while Mom remained at home in case she called. The stress of the incident had clearly impacted Mom's health, as I noticed her hands shaking when I stopped by to check on them yesterday morning. My aunt called to let me know my sister had arrived at her home in a neighboring state. She had allegedly stayed at a motel to clear her head. According to my aunt, my sister cried for the duration of the first day and revealed that she was torn between 2 terrible choices. My aunt persuaded her to call our parents, who drove 4 hours to bring her home. They returned late last night, and Dad texted that they should all relax before discussing anything else today. My sister finally contacted me directly. The conversation was not what I had anticipated. She acknowledged lying about her grandfather changing his mind and selling the watch because she and her boyfriend were experiencing financial difficulties as a result of poor Bitcoin investment decisions. They had lost approximately $30,000 due to a hoax, and they were too humiliated to notify anyone. She stated that she would accept the settlement offer and work additional shifts at her job to make the payments. What stood out to me the most was her justification for running away. She stated she couldn't face everyone once her lies were exposed in court, and she felt torn between her boyfriend's desire to pursue the lawsuit and her developing belief that she had made a terrible mistake. She also admitted that seeing her mother's health deteriorate as a result of the family quarrel made her feel tremendously guilty. She spent those days pondering whether to leave town permanently or try to apologize. I told her that I was relieved she was safe and that while I was still upset by her behavior, I was eager to find a solution. We decided to meet with our lawyers tomorrow to finalize the settlement agreement. She also stated that she believes she still has her grandfather's notepad about the watch somewhere in storage and plans to seek for it this weekend. The judge has approved our settlement arrangement. The watch buyer will return the prize to me next week, and my sister will start making monthly payments to him. I have agreed to drop all outstanding claims, including legal fees. While this means I'll have to cover the significant costs myself, the end of the legal battle is worthwhile at this moment. My mother has non-cancerous yet concerning growths that need to be checked. Dad advised me that her health problem is not necessarily life-threatening, but it does require care. The stress of familial discord has surely harmed her health. I apologized to both of them for not being more aware of what was going on and offered to assist with her care in the future. For those wondering if I feel victorious, this does not feel like a win. Getting the watch back is vital to me, but the cost has gone far beyond merely legal fees. I'm learning that my sister's activities sprang from a place of financial desperation that she was too embarrassed to admit. And although this does not excuse her actions, it does help me understand them better. We've all made mistakes along the way, and now we must decide whether family relationships are worth restoring. I believe they are. Update 4. April 30th, 2025. It's been more than a month since my last update, and I wanted to explain how things have altered since the settlement. The watch was returned to me as agreed. The handover took place at my lawyer's office, with both my sister and the buyer there. When I eventually handled it again, I saw several fresh, little scratches on the casing, as well as a slight wobble in the crown, indicating poor handling. The buyer stated that he had taken it to a jeweler for cleaning, but the person was clearly unfamiliar with antique clocks. He seemed to genuinely apologize for the damage. I took it to a specialized watchmaker who could restore it to its original condition for $850. My sister has made 2 payments to the buyer so far to meet her financial obligations. She has taken on a second job, working on weekends at a local cafe. The arrangement looked to be working, albeit she claimed that the payments will take nearly 3 years to complete at the current rate. Her boyfriend first left after their fight but returned 2 weeks later. According to my father, they are still dating but have put off preparations for an engagement or a flat. They've moved into a smaller rental to minimize costs and are gradually rebuilding their finances. My sister also discovered and returned my grandfather's notebook, which detailed the construction of the watch. It was mixed in with old college textbooks in her storage area. The notebook contained detailed designs, technical specifications, and journal entries from his 3 years working on the artwork. We've had 3 family counseling sessions. Progress has been slow and awkward. In the first session, we mostly established ground rules for communication. By the second session, my sister acknowledged that she had harbored resentment toward me from infancy because she believed our grandfather preferred me because of my engineering background. She admitted that stealing the watch was motivated in part by a desire to become the center of the family story. She recalls feeling invisible in comparison to my accomplishments and the wonderful bond one shared with my grandfather. This discovery hit me hard. I never thought about how my relationship with our grandfather would have appeared to her. While it does not justify selling a family heirloom, it did provide some context that I had not previously considered. In the third session, I realized that I probably talked too much about my projects with my grandfather, not thinking how it would have made her feel left out. We've started discussing how to honor various types of familial links rather than comparing them. My mother's health has stabilized. The prescription prescribed by the doctor seemed to be effective, and her most recent test confirmed an improvement. She began joining my father and me for lunch on Sundays, gradually reestablishing our normal family routines. Additional information. For those wondering about legal fees, the total came to somewhat more than $9,000. It was a significant financial drain, but I don't regret sticking up for what was right. Now on to the next story. Story 9. My stepmother and father are leaving me alone and going on a honeymoon with their daughters, so I made sure they don't come back into my house. She died of a stroke last year at the age of 47, leaving me this house as an inheritance. Although it came as a shock, I've come to terms with it. My parents shared custody of me after divorcing when I was 7 years old. I was with my mom for half the month and my dad for the other half. I must admit that because my mother understood me, we were closer. My 50-year-old father was always a little too busy for me. I received the impression that he was more focused on his work and ladies than he was on me. He didn't seem to prioritize me, but as long as I had my mother, I didn't mind. My dad made the decision to relocate to Houston for work a few years ago, shortly after I turned 18 and enrolled in college. We only met around the holidays and began to see each other less frequently. He joined us in celebrating Christmas 2 years ago with his then-girlfriend, 38-year-old Julia. She also brought her 2 daughters from her former relationship with her high school sweetheart, who were 16 and 18 years old. Before she began dating my dad, they had broken up for almost 7 years but had never been married. My dad had never brought a girlfriend to family gatherings, so we were taken aback. Nevertheless, we made every effort to make Julia and her girls feel at home and welcome them as warmly as possible. We all seemed to get along well at the time, and it was a very lovely evening. Even after that, Julia would always greet me when I called my dad, and she was really kind to me. Her daughters tended to keep to themselves because they were a little shy and introverted. Our relationship was nice overall. I learned that my mother left me the house after she died. Luckily, my mother always loved to plan ahead, especially in serious instances like these. So, she distributed all of her assets and her will around the time I turned 18. I made the decision to move in and look for a job that wouldn't require me to relocate anytime soon because I had recently finished college. I was comfortable in my childhood house, so I wanted to stay there for the next few years. After learning about the will, my dad made sure I knew that he wasn't pleased with my mom's choice. My dad was a little depressed when he realized he wouldn't be getting the house back, but he and Julia had been quite kind and encouraging at the funeral. My mom took over this house during the divorce, but my parents purchased it together when they first got married. Even though my mom sacrificed her job to stay at home and raise me so my dad could concentrate on his business, it was a fair arrangement because he got away with not paying alimony. In my opinion, it was entirely reasonable to keep the house in the settlement and release my dad from alimony. With some assistance from her parents, my mom recovered later, and she even made sure I never felt ignored or unimportant. She was good at both jobs. My dad was furious about not getting the house back, but I didn't mind. Although he didn't discuss it much, I could tell by his actions that he wasn't pleased about it. Since I was still grieving over my mother at the time, and my dad's anger over her will was the least of my concerns, I didn't give a damn. It should have been sufficient for him because she had left him all of her bridal jewelry and the presents he had given her. A few weeks after the funeral, he and Julia returned to Houston, and I've been living here alone ever since. My dad told me around 6 months ago that he was now engaged to Julia and that he planned to marry her in his house. It didn't make sense to remain in a hotel when there was a property with enough more rooms, so he intended to return here in the weeks before the wedding. In order to avoid any problems with schools, her daughters were likewise homeschooled for a few reasons. I agreed with him and let them move into my home and reside with me prior to the wedding. Since Julia and I got along well and I was sick of living alone, I didn't see any issues with letting them live with me. Additionally, I didn't have to worry about going over budget because my dad promised to split all of the costs with me while they were living here. They have been here ever since they moved in with me almost a month ago. I felt a lot less lonely than I did when I lived alone, and it was good to have them around. I believed I could adjust to this. I even looked forward to the day they all left and returned to their regular lives, since I would have to do the same thing by myself. However, my dad asked me whether I would be open to letting them all reside here permanently 2 weeks ago, 3 days prior to the wedding. He stated that he had returned here to help me feel a little more at ease with the notion of living with him and becoming a member of a family, which was completely unexpected. The thought of me living here alone didn't sit well with him. Now that he believed we were getting along, he wanted to know if I would be open to making this a permanent arrangement, which he intended to introduce to me gradually. I wanted to say yes at once, but I was a little perplexed by his actions. After learning that he wouldn't be getting the house back, I didn't believe it was a good idea to make it a permanent arrangement so soon. Even though I would have wanted to, I didn't want to act on my feelings and make a mistake. I didn't have to let them all live with me, even though I knew this was the only sensible way to deal with my intense loneliness. They had barely been residing here for a month. I told him I needed some time to ponder, even though I really wanted to say yes. For whatever reason, I had a gut feeling that it would be best for me to wait and not make a hurried choice. I put aside my sentiments and promised to let him know what I had decided after the wedding. Although he didn't bring up the subject, he appeared upset. We had a terrific time at their wedding, which took place 10 days ago. After the wedding, they were expected to remain here for a few more days before going back home. They all went off on their honeymoon without telling me, just as I was about to tell them what I had decided. Everyone had left when I woke up 2 days after their wedding, leaving me all by myself. I decided to call since many of their possessions were still at my place, but nobody picked up for a while. I kept worrying about it for hours. I was unable to contact them, even though I had intended to inform them of my choice that same day. When Julia finally responded at lunchtime, she nonchalantly told me that they had all left for their honeymoon and wouldn't be returning for a week. I was taken aback because I clearly thought that even if I wasn't part of their plans, they would at least tell me about them before departing. I didn't want to sound petty, but I felt insulted that they hadn't asked me. I began by questioning why none of this had been communicated to me. Using the pathetic excuse that they had failed to inform me, she promised me that they would return shortly. That wasn't the purpose at all. I attempted to explain my problem was that it was impolite of them to just walk out without saying anything or even saying goodbye. Her tone shifted when I mentioned that I wanted to speak with my dad. She claimed that my dad was too busy to speak with me. Nevertheless, I made an effort to remain composed and instructed her to notify me when he had some free time so that I could speak with him personally. I expressed it courteously, but she changed her attitude entirely. She changed from being kind to harsh and savage. She advised me not to worry them and informed me that my dad would be busy for the next few days. There was no need to act so hysterically just because they left me behind, she continued. She then felt compelled to remind me that I was no longer a child and that I had to come to terms with the fact that my dad had a new family. She went on to say that she wanted me to quit thinking about myself and tidy the house for them when they got home. She wasn't going to speak to me in that manner, and I'm not sure to whom she thought she was speaking when she said that. She immediately hung up, and I was immediately furious. After seeing this side of his new wife, I thanked the world for keeping me from accepting my dad's offer and decided not to call him again. They were not going to live with me in any way. I, therefore, packed everything they owned as haphazardly and shoddily as I could, crammed it all into a few cardboard boxes, and left it in the yard for them to discover when they made the decision to come back. Since such items didn't belong to me and didn't belong in a house that belonged to me, I didn't give a damn what would happen to them after that. I carried on with my life as usual, making an effort to ignore the sense of betrayal I had experienced due to my dad's senseless actions. They finally got back from their honeymoon yesterday. Fortunately, they discovered all of their belongings in the yard while I was at work. In the interim, I also replaced the door locks which prevented them from entering. When my dad called me about it, he was furious. Since they hadn't done anything illegal, leaving me at home without warning wasn't something to be upset about. He told me I was being a spoiled child and that I was overreacting. I instructed him to get his boxes and go, and I would call the police if I saw them on my property when I got home. I couldn't waste time worrying about it because I had to return to work. After he insulted me and hung up, they had taken their belongings and left when I arrived home from work. That seemed to be the end of it. The worst part, however, was still to come. My dad called me at midnight to let me know that Julia had something to say to me. She retracted everything she had said and expressed regret for the way she had spoken to me. She went on to say that she didn't want to remain on bad terms with me over something so trivial and that she would welcome a second chance to make things right. I didn't need her phony excuses, so I instructed her to stop talking and go away since I wouldn't be letting them live with me. I understand why she felt the need to act like a happy family. She wouldn't have delayed so long to acknowledge her mistake if she genuinely regretted what she had done. She would have apologized throughout their vacation or maybe immediately following that phone call. My dad probably doesn't regret anything either, but he decided to appear nostalgic when he knew I wouldn't forgive them. He accused me of being cold-hearted for not allowing them to live with me. He wanted to live in this house because it made him think of my mother, but he said he was willing to split all the expenses if I allowed him to return. He claimed that since he only wanted to feel closer to my mother, it would be self-centered of me to throw them out in this way without considering the consequences. He even attempted to justify Julia's actions by saying that she had simply had a rough day and that nothing she said was intended. He went on to say that his girls wanted to return and start anew because they missed me. However, I refused to accept any of that. Since the divorce, I'd known my dad had his eye on this house, and after seeing this side of Julia, I didn't want to take any chances. I told him that since I wasn't going to change my decision, they couldn't return. Suddenly, my father broke down in tears over the phone. He said that because I refused to let him reside in the home where he had the greatest days of his life, I was the most self-centered daughter ever. He claimed that I was being petty and harsh because of a minor argument with Julia and the fact that they hadn't invited me on their honeymoon, which wasn't even the primary point of contention. My mother would despise this ugly side of me, he said, after his wife mistreated me and they didn't even invite me to go on their honeymoon. Am I the bad one for not letting my dad and his new family move back in with me? Update 1. My initial post didn't receive the kind of response I had anticipated. I get what everyone was trying to say, but I don't believe some of you needed to be so nasty about it. Since my dad doesn't deserve it, I stayed true to my resolve and didn't allow him to move back in. I don't need any more rudeness in my life, and that's all he's been so far. At first, he and Julia were both quite sweet to me, so it was lovely while it lasted, but my dad's true colors came out when I told him that I still needed time to ponder. Unfortunately, I'm not that weak. They probably ran out of patience and believed they could intimidate me into having them live with me. Being by myself is preferable to hanging out with the wrong people. His reaction when he discovered that the house deed had been moved to me rather than to him should have been enough to make me realize how materialistic and self-centered people can be when it comes to these things. Therefore, I shouldn't have allowed them here at all. Regarding Julia, I'm relieved that she decided to pointlessly argue with me and ultimately caused significant harm to herself. We all could have been a happy family, or at least I suppose we could have been, had she not spoken that way. However, I will never fall for their deceptive tactics again, so that will never occur. All of my grandparents had already died. I was alone and I missed my mother. I needed a family to be there for me, but these folks are obviously not capable of doing that. Fortunately, I discovered it before it was too late. Since they left a few days ago, my dad has been phoning me frequently and texting me because I don't pick up his calls. They don't deserve it, but he feels that I should at least give them one final chance to make amends. They squandered their one and only opportunity, and I have no doubt that they will do the same if I offer them another. It doesn't make sense to take that chance because it will impact me more than anyone else. Although I regret how I treated my dad, there isn't much I can do in this circumstance. He never bothered to put forth much effort with me, and you get what you sow. He never did anything for me. Therefore, he has no right to be upset when he understands that I won't base my decisions in life on him and his emotions. Update 2. It seems like my dad is really desperate to move and not just insists on it. Can you guess why? He was fired a few months before his wedding and has been living off his savings ever since because he didn't take the vacation he claimed to have taken. Even though he had a sizable amount of funds, he eventually told Julia that they couldn't afford to return to Houston to try their luck after an elaborate wedding and honeymoon. He was unable to cover the rent, and Julia was unable to assist either because she had quit her job to become a housewife after meeting my dad. My dad expected that I would allow them to live with me, but now they needed to find a place here. Julia didn't even bother to apologize because she didn't know about any of this until he told her the truth. I was correct when I said that she lacked genuine regret for her actions. Even though she is completely fake, my dad deserves a woman like her. He got in touch with me once more today and asked if I could allow them to move in for a few days until he could find a good job that would pay enough to continue. However, I informed him that I would not do so. I didn't need that type of negativity about me, and they had been nasty. He's an adult. He ought to have realized that a luxurious wedding and honeymoon would be inappropriate if he didn't have a job. I can appreciate the desire to flaunt one's money, but only for those who can truly afford it, not for men who have 2 teenage stepdaughters and a housewife. I'm not to blame for his decision to disregard his obligations, even if he was fully aware of them. I'm not going to feel bad about prioritizing myself since I am no longer responsible for any of this. They may handle things on their own. I tried to be a little more courteous than I am here because I didn't want to come off as making fun of him or anything. I contacted him and stated the same things I mentioned here. Nevertheless, he chose to see it as a parody of the situation and informed me that I would be held accountable for my actions toward him. I didn't reply since I'm not sure how to react to that. He will now find a way to blame me for it and make it my responsibility, regardless of what I say. Therefore, it is preferable to be quiet and let him suffer. I scarcely care about it anymore. Update 3. Today, my dad made the decision to leave the city. However, why would he depart without informing me of my shortcomings as a daughter? He could have gone in silence, but he and his wife are who they are. They decided to turn it into a big show. I haven't spoken to him in almost 3 weeks. After that, we didn't talk again, and he didn't even try to get in touch with me. However, he and Julia texted me today to tell me that they were overjoyed to tell me that Julia's ex-boyfriend had agreed to pay for their return journey and would even allow them to stay with him. He apparently had an epiphany that he needed to see his daughters as well. Although her ex-husband paid child support and Julia had full custody of her girls, he was never quite able to find time for them. After waiting long enough for my dad and Julia to resolve their differences amicably, he offered to clean up his own mess after realizing they were of no service. I guess this is fantastic for his daughters. At least some fathers do take charge, even if it's too late. I recognize that this might have been the only answer, but they didn't tell me all of this up front. A few hours earlier, they shared a photo of their girls along with a comment that included a 4-leaf clover sticker and a fortunate clover. I'm intelligent enough to deduce the possible true reason for Julia's ex's unexpected realization and the reason he's paying for their return trip. I'm not entirely sure why he would pay for all of their airline tickets, but I believe Julia's deceit and obstinacy may have played a role. I've witnessed it firsthand before. Therefore, I'm positive she exhibits such behavior. I'm glad they're going because this is the last time I'll see them. I'm not sure what actually happened. After reading some of the stories people posted about their wacky families, I also recognized how fortunate I was. My dad knows I won't think twice about calling the police, so you can be sure he's a little too concerned about his reputation to try to harm me in any manner. There's no need for me to worry because I've had enough training to know how to defend myself. I have even less reason to think about them now that they're going. For me, I suppose hooray. I still get a little lonely sometimes, but I now talk to my friends instead of moping about it, since I believe that's a healthier course of action in these kinds of circumstances. After my mother died, I totally shut myself off from the world, and it wasn't until I read these remarks that I realized how lonely I had become. I will attempt to live my life to the fullest now, even though it will take some time. In contrast to many individuals my age, I have a steady job, a respectable salary, and a home of my own. I'm really appreciative of my mother for it. What more could a person want, really, than wonderful friends who genuinely care about me? I'll simply return here if I get into difficulties again, and I have no doubt that the amazing individuals who read this will assist me again. Update 4. My father called me out of the blue today. He had been attempting to contact me via calls, messages, and social media, but I didn't want to speak with him, so it wasn't shocking. I finally responded because I wanted him to stop pestering me and because I wanted to know why he was so persistent. We hadn't spoken for a few months, so I knew this would be, to put it mildly, fascinating. When he informed me that Julia had chosen to reconcile with her ex, the same person who paid for their return trip, my amazement at hearing his voice after all this time changed to incredulity. She apparently chose to return to her former relationship after things with my father didn't work out as planned. My father was distraught and shocked. He requested an opportunity to make amends and mend our friendship, and he appeared sincere in his apologies for everything that had transpired. However, I couldn't help but feel uninterested. After everything that had transpired, his and Julia's actions had caused me too much worry and suffering, and I no longer wanted to allow them back into my life. I expressed my regret to him, but I had already made up my mind and had no plans to change it. I remained steadfast in my stance despite the desperate tone in his speech. I couldn't ignore the anguish they had given me. After all, my father has been attempting to reach me ever since, but I have blocked his calls and messages. I understand that it could be challenging for him, but I must put my own mental health and well-being first. That's it for now. Now on to the next story. Story 10. I came home early from my exhausting job to surprise my wife and found a love letter she wrote to another man. So I told his wife about the months-long affair, then divorced her. I was married to my wife, Lily, in my mid-30s. She was 33 then, and we were a basic family who had the bare minimum. No kids, which I was grateful for. She wanted a new kitchen, and that meant one thing: longer hours at work for me and barely enough time to be home when she got back from school. She was a school teacher, by the way. I thought getting her what she wanted was going to make her happier, but it didn't. Instead, she would barely look at me while I tried conversing with her, and she answered with curt nods when I asked questions. It went on like this for weeks. I was coming back tired to my distant wife. One day at work, I began to sweat profusely, even when it was less than 20 degrees outside. My coworker, who happened to see me rub my eyes to clear my blurry vision, insisted I go home. I had painkillers to help me get my head together before climbing into my truck and driving home. This was the first time in months that I was going home early. It was going to surprise Lily. I parked my truck out front when I realized she wasn't back yet. By the time I was heading for the door, I noticed there was mail in the box. I was never the one to check the mail because my wife got home before I did. But this mail got my attention. I grabbed it and checked who it was for. It was an address not too far away and within the city with our return address, and the sender was Lily. It was natural to ignore the mail, knowing she was always sending something like this, but then I found it weird that the recipient address was still in this town, not too far from where I lived. My curiosity got the best of me, and I opened it up, especially because the envelope was pink and had faint, cute hearts sprinkled on it. It wasn't anything you'd send a serious letter, and alarm bells in my head were already going off, and the dizziness felt earlier at work washed away. My finger pulled at the print inside, and my heart broke at what I saw: nudes. They were nudes, her nudes. That wasn't all. There was a handwritten letter telling the recipient to enjoy. With my blood boiling and my head hot, I closed it up and studied the address again, knowing the place was a few streets away. I climbed into my truck. I finally found the apartment, clean and freshly painted. I stayed in my truck, watching to see if anyone was in. When right at that moment, a new car pulled up to the driveway. The man, who I guess is the owner, stepped out and I followed with the mail in hand. The man turned to me in confusion. Pretending to be delivering a package, I handed the mail to him, and in 3 seconds, when he realized who it was from, his eyes widened. It surprised me how calm I was. No fist throwing, no tongue lashing, just a straight stare at the man in front of me. I noticed the woman on the other side of the door watching us curiously. His wife, I suppose. Assuring him I wouldn't make a scene, I told him to come with me, and he obliged with no hesitation, giving his wife the excuse of going to see a friend, and entered my truck. I stopped by a phone booth along the way and called Lily. She was back home, and from the sound in the background, I could tell she was making her special tea. I gave her the news of an emergency and told her that she should meet me at her parents' house. Her instant response was expected, and I hung up. Heading back to the car, I drove up to her parents' house without saying a word to the man having an affair with Lily. By the time I rounded up at her parents' house, Lily had just arrived. It wasn't her reaction. Her mouth fell open as she saw the man next to me. Her parents, who had just stepped outside, found us and were confused by what was going on. I told the man to hand the mail over to her parents and explain himself. It didn't take too long for my wife to start crying. She tried to explain, but her sobs made it hard for her. The man she was having an affair with understood that the jig was up and explained that this had been going on for months. They had met at a parent-teacher meeting in school, and he had shown interest in her, even knowing she was married. Lily never tried to turn him down. Instead, she bathed in his attention and made it something more. Her parents were stunned by the information. Lily was already clinging to my shirt, crying, but I brushed her off. I couldn't believe that she would betray me like this, so I told her to stay with her parents. She started crying harder, begging me not to do this to our family. Her parents were extremely upset, asking me to reconsider and trying to console their daughter, but I just left. I left the affair with them too. I wonder what they did to him after I left because her dad was looking murderous. A few days later, I filed for a divorce and sent it over to her for signing. Her parents kept on calling, as did Lily, and she kept sending me mail by morning and evening delivery in the same pink envelope she sent those nudes to. That's when I realized she was just incredibly dumb. I found the affair partner's phone number from the directory and called his wife to tell her about everything that happened between Lily and her husband. I don't know what she did with that piece of information. Some months later, my divorce was finalized. A few years down the line, I met a wonderful woman who I married and started a family with. I don't regret leaving my ex one bit because I would not have the life I have today had I not. Do not ever stay with a cheating spouse, you deserve better. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Wife got mad when I started secretly packing our daughter American lunches because she was being bullied over her cultural food that she brought to school. My wife, Sarah, 36F, and I, 35M, have an 11-year-old daughter named Lily. Lily had begun attending 6th grade in September, but this problem only recently became a major issue. Sarah is Indian and makes great dishes that the whole family enjoys and tends to pack these lunches for Lily as well. She typically packs Lily a rice with dal in a container or something similar, which she had no issues with in elementary school. However, recently Lily came sobbing to her mom and I about the lunches. The kids at school had been making fun of her food, which absolutely made my heart break. I had struggled with the same thing at her age. I come from a Chinese family and would always take homemade food to school too. When I asked her if she wanted us to report the problem, she begged us not to so she wouldn't be called a snitch or worse. When Sarah heard this, she simply contacted the principal, which I didn't want to resort to at first, and left the issue, telling Lily she wouldn't be buying school lunch and to just ignore the other kids. The same problem occurred every day. Lily would be coming home feeling extremely upset, and there were even times Sarah would yell at Lily for not even touching her school lunch. We both had talks with Lily about her culture and how she should be proud. We have contacted the schools, but the school is ignorant of the issue. They simply had a talk with the parents and ended it there, and Lily isn't budging. I don't want her to starve because so many days she doesn't even eat her lunch. I know how brutal middle schoolers can be, and I didn't want Lily to feel insecure or upset, even if it meant making her take other lunches. But Sarah refuses to make other lunches. I began to make other lunches for Lily, like sandwiches or sometimes mac and cheese, so she'd feel more comfortable eating it in school in front of her classmates. As a final resort, when nothing else worked, I would take Lily's lunch for myself at work and pack her own lunch early in the morning, which she finished and seemed happier when coming home daily after. However, this only worked for about 2 weeks until Sarah found out and was infuriated. She said I was denying Lily her culture and she needed to learn to stop being insulted by other kids, telling me I'm raising Lily to get whatever she wants. Is Sarah right? Edit. Bringing this post and topic up tonight. I'll post an update when I can. Hopefully this is enough to convince Sarah. If not, I'll do what other comments said and just keep packing Lily's lunch or let her pick. OP replies to commenters. Comment, NTA. You don't have to use every single meal to celebrate your culture. Getting the kid to eat something is way more important. Up 100%. She's been eating her lunches since I switched them out. Comment. I think Sarah's heart is in the right place. I'm talking to her soon, but otherwise I agree. She's not exactly going out with it in the right way. We can preserve her culture in other ways at home. Update 1. Okay, so I'll start by saying thank you for all the comments. A lot of people agreed with me, some told me I should let Lily pick her lunch. I showed the post to Sarah and it took about an hour or so, but we both sat down and talked with Lily on where she wants to go from here, and she said she liked the lunches I packed her, etc. However, we also figured out this bullying had been going on for longer than just 2 to 3 weeks. So Sarah agreed to let Lily take whatever lunch she wanted on the condition that she'd eat homemade food, Chinese or Indian, for dinner/breakfast still, and we all agreed, so Sarah got her part in it. As for the school, since the principal hardly did anything, we reached out to the school board superintendent and are still waiting for a response. I think this solved the issue better too, and when we get a response, I'll post a second update. Thank you for the advice. Update 2. So I'm sorry for taking so long to update, but we managed to resolve everything. The superintendent and school board were actually incredibly helpful and got back to us within 2 days to schedule a meeting about this. I don't want to go too much into detail, but there were 2 specific girls who played a big role in the bullying. I believe one of them got detention for some time and another got suspended because she'd done this before. Their parents were also super apologetic and supportive of Lily and didn't try to get in the way of the consequences, which really was nice. As for Lily, she is doing much better and is definitely more content and happier when she comes home from school. Thank you. Now on to the next story. Story 12. My wife slept through every night since our baby was born. I found her crying when I asked for a 5-minute break. She thought I was going to take our kids away from her. Hey guys, 5 days ago, my wife, 25F, gave birth to our second child, our daughter, and then our son, 3M, came home 2 days later. For the past 5 days, I, 25M, have put myself on baby duty every night and given my wife a full night's sleep, as well as getting the kids up and ready for the day. Yesterday morning, I had gotten the kids ready to go out after pulling another all-nighter. I don't mind it as it gives me some one-on-one time with baby girl and gives me a chance to get my run back with radon, as well as gave my wife the chance to get herself ready at her own pace as she's still recovering. She's doing amazing but started to feel bad about me not getting any sleep. I told her it's okay, and I'm fine with it. But last night, before I put our son to bed, I asked my wife if she could watch the kids for a moment while I went to the bathroom. When I came back, she had obviously been crying. I immediately went into panic mode, but she calmed me down, explaining that her midnight moment was caused by her feeling like she wasn't doing enough, and that she felt horrible that I was choosing to stay with our daughter rather than getting any sleep. I understood her, and she sent me to bed. When she woke up this morning after I got a night of intermittent sleep, I know I shouldn't feel like an but I always overthink, and as a dad, I never feel like I'm doing enough or what I do compares to what my wife does. She's amazing and just went through childbirth, and I just want to give her the time she needs to recover. Comments. Commenter 1. Let me make sure I have this straight. This thread is about both parents feeling like jerks because they feel like they aren't doing enough to help the other parent rest. This has to be a humble brag, right? Nah, and let your wife know not to worry. She did the heavy lifting the last trimester, really the whole pregnancy, and that you are happy to carry the load a bit until you can't. And by then she should be rested enough that you two can walk forward together. P. A bit of both, but I truly do feel like I need to be doing more. I want to prove that not every man is doing just the bare minimum and that I can take care of our kids and be trusted just as much as mothers are by default. Update. November 1st, 2024. Hey everyone, so a lot of people saw my last post, a lot, and too many people commented to get to every comment and respond. I apologize for that, and I thank you all for the supportive words. I do not, however, appreciate any slander towards my wife. For a little context, I felt like TA because I made my wife cry while leaving her with the kids, regardless of her telling me that it was only for a trip to the bathroom and B, necessary for me to sleep in our own bed. Secondly, I currently have 6 weeks off of work for child bonding, so work is no sweat as of now. Thirdly, whomever commented that we should take shifts, you all get cookies. We discussed taking shifts starting tonight with me taking the night/early mornings. And finally, there is a whole host of backstory on why we're both a bit emotional. This is our second child, but our third pregnancy. Our daughter is our rainbow baby who we thought we wouldn't have, not just for the reason mentioned, but we nearly divorced 2 years prior in a particularly nasty way. A commenter found one of my previous posts and asked why I stayed with her. For context, almost 2 years ago, we were drinking at a friend's birthday party, and some very hurtful things were said that couldn't be taken back even after sobering up. I was too hurt to move on, and I told her I wanted to divorce. We both knew it was because alcohol was the problem, and she swore she would get help. The idea that we needed CC and IC was also thrown in. We both uncovered problems that needed resolving. Long story short, we focused on fixing the problems in ourselves and our marriage and started breaking generational cycles. Unfortunately, a lot of roadblocks came our way during our healing. My good friend of 10+ years cut me off for choosing to give my wife another chance. Her mom got arrested. We moved into a smaller house. Another friend tried to break us up. My father passed away. I could go on, but you get the point. Fast forward to October 2023, we are in such a spot that we have both been sober since that party, and we were more in love with each other than ever, and we talked about a second baby. We found out that she's pregnant mid-October and started planning a reveal for Thanksgiving for family. Then a few days after Halloween, she miscarries. This is where the feeling of not doing enough comes in. I am at work 35 miles away when she needs to go to the hospital, and the person who she thought was her best friend for 8-ish years chooses not to go with her, so she had to go by herself on top of trying to wrangle and stay strong for a rambunctious toddler. I felt horrible, and even with therapy, I haven't really been able to move on from that. So when she got pregnant with our daughter, I did every little thing for her with gusto, obviously leading up to and exceeding past birth, evolving into a mantra of, I will be the best husband and father I can humanly be. Which leads to another common comment I've been seeing, her minib moment. We both have a dark sense of humor and make light of our pain before helping each other through a problem. So her saying that she had a minib, she was just breaking the ice of her problem leading to the related problem. Some people seem to have a little bit of crying is not a mental breakdown. You have no right to say someone is or isn't going through something regardless of circumstance, and B, I downplay because privacy, but I guess I need to say that while I went to the bathroom and our son was in his room and our newborn was fast asleep, my wife sobbed at her hands and knees fearing that she might fall down the path again, and I was only taking on so much responsibility because she's afraid I'm only preparing to take them in case she does spiral. When someone posts something a bit vague, it's not necessarily for ulterior motives. This post was made to answer any questions people had regarding the other one and to give background on our marriage, so I may not update again. I do sincerely thank everyone who was kind in the comments, especially all the moms who mentioned the 5 days thing. It gave my wife a laugh and some relief. Additional information from OP. Based on the friendship with that good friend of 10+ years, OP. Upon reflection and consulting with my therapist, we believe the friend that cut me off was trying to get me to leave my wife for her. That's what the friend who was trying to break us up was trying to do as well. My wife usually is a great judge of character, and she has a very big heart, and she really has come a long way. I didn't want to have to put all her growth in the post, but I can rattle some stuff off. She went to AA, she learned how to drive, she started setting boundaries with friends and family. She was the one who ended the friendship with her ex-best friend, just to name a few accomplishments. Comments. Commenter 1. Sending you both so much love. It sounds like you've been through the ringer but are hanging in there. Stay strong. You're doing great. OP. It's been a rough year, yeah, but we're making it through. Thank you for the kind words. Commenter 2. Hey OP, thanks for the update. I'm so glad you managed to have a conversation with her about this. You're a good husband and father, and she will appreciate all the support you're giving her. I'm glad the 5 days suggestion made her laugh. That's just what you need to do. Keep joking with her if that's what she enjoys. Just continue to be there to support her and make sure you look after yourself as best you can. Stay strong. You're doing a fab job. You'll both be okay. OP. Something she told me was, you don't get an achievement for getting X amount of sleep. All I can say is therapy has done wonders. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.